Good morning and welcome to another sitting of St. Lucia's Parliament. My name is Virgil Leonti and I am here with
Michael Gaspar, and welcome, bienvenue tout le monde, Sainte-Lucie, adjudant pays et bec des pays, bienvenue pour une autre session qui a commencé tout de suite. Comme on a parlé là, nous avons un speaker qui a déjà parlé et qui a commencé tout de suite. Alors, nous allons aller au petit speaker à présent. Oh, my phone is on charge.
Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the King, the public weal, peace and tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity to one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Ghost be with us all evermore. Amen.
Good morning, honorable members. I am in receipt of correspondence advising of the absence of the members for Castries Central, Dennery South, Babonneau, and Vieux-Fort North. Members, no presiding officer is perfect. No presiding officer will satisfy the expectations of all. Still, it is expected that his or her rulings will be respected. If one is dissatisfied with any ruling by a presiding officer, each and every member in this House has recourse both in and out of the House. But it is definitely not open to any member to display disrespect openly to the chair's rulings. That it has never become necessary for a presiding officer to make certain rulings does not mean that such rulings are not available to the presiding officer. I know what I can rule on and what I cannot rule on. Having checked the relevant legal and other authorities, I certainly know how far my own authority and responsibilities extend. Ever since being elected, I have always acted only on the authority given me by the Standing Orders and the Privileges Act. And I will not allow this House to be deliberately and calculatedly brought into chaos, because there are those in and out of this chamber who believe I lack certain authority. On Tuesday of this week, I ruled against a point of order raised by the leader of government business. He immediately but respectfully disagreed with my ruling, but he just as quickly took his seat. 2 days later, he has not even raised the issue with me, which he could do in his capacity of leader of government business, and for this, I applaud him. There is no dispute regarding the need for our population to know and follow what takes place in the people's house. But never let it be believed that a live broadcast is a right. It is not. But it is this presiding officer who removed the barriers placed by a former member. It is this speaker who again put on the loudspeakers outside, which were dulled by a previous administration. It is this presiding officer who has a history of defending freedom of the press. I do not have any beef with any individual member of this House, including the leader of the opposition. In fact, I go further to say I share an excellent outside of the House relationship with the leader of the opposition. Notwithstanding, it is not my intention, nor was it ever my intention, to interfere with the need of the people to know. But we shall proceed with a clear understanding that I will not tolerate the disrespect I have allowed. For example, on Tuesday of this week, on 3 separate occasions, the mobile phone of the leader of the opposition went off. If I were to have acted under the rules put in this House by speakers who were appointed under his watch, not only would his telephone be confiscated, he would have been asked to pay a fine. I did not intervene. So I don't know where my beef is with the leader of the opposition. So the disrespect to the chair, which has been evident, will not continue. And the minute it rears its head, henceforth, it will be dealt with decisively and with the full force of the standing orders. Members, when we rose, the finance minister was about to present the motion to borrow US $1.203 million. Finance Minister.
Chair, before I continue on that motion, Mr. Speaker, I just want to inform this Honorable House that St. Lucia this morning in Paris won the presidency of the UNESCO Executive Board by a margin of 46 votes to 20. So St. Lucia is now the president of the UNESCO Executive Board. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I had already laid the motion, and I made the point that we were having that intervention in Mykolaiv, the constituency of in Mykolaiv constituency, Mr. Speaker. It's a constituency that we will pay special attention to the Miko constituencies, Mr. Speaker, because they have been having good representation for the last 2 years. The Mykolaiv constituency has been having very good representation for the last 2 years, Mr. Speaker, and we wish the same could be said for the Mykolaiv constituency. But we will remedy that situation very shortly, Mr. Speaker. With the call for elections, we will remedy that situation. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion. I want to tell the people of Mykolaiv that the government is an all-inclusive government. We have made available to both parliamentarians in Mykolaiv and Mykolaiv CDP funds. We've made available to them education allowances. We made this available to them. We will continue and we hope that the people of Patience will enjoy a new water supply. There have been several complaints about it, and the member has been speaking and asking, and we had to approach the CDF with the support of WASCO to get water, to get that water project in Mykonos. So I am sure the member from Mykonos will have quite a lot to say about this development, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow an amount of US $1,203,224, the loan from the CARICOM Development Fund, the fund to finance the Pasias Community Water Supply Project. Be it further resolved that A, the loan is repayable in 10 years, commencing from the first due date after a grace period of 2 years following the date of the first disbursement. B, the loan is repayable in 40 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments. C, the loan payments commence on the 30th day of March, the 30th day of June, the 30th day of September, and the 30th day of December of each year. And D, interest is payable at a rate of 3% per annum on the amount of the loan disbursed and outstanding. Member for Miko North and Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know. Is Brina put it for? Yeah, get to it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's not on many opportunities I stand in this house and I feel emotional. But this morning, Mr. Speaker, with this motion, I have feelings of jubilation, feelings of excitement, feelings of satisfaction, Mr. Speaker, because this motion before us to borrow 1.203 million US dollars, Mr. Speaker, for the Pasias Community Water Supply Project. This is something, Mr. Speaker, that is just indicative of what the St. Lucia Labour Party and what this government stands for. And Mr. Speaker, I stand here as the first parliamentary rep for Miko North under the ticket of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And the problem that we are about to solve because of this motion, Mr. Speaker, is one that has been in existence for about 40 years or over 40 years in the community. And under the stewardship and under the watch of several other parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker, there was no need, or they did not see the need to address such a critical problem in Miko North. Mr. Speaker, the Pasias Water Supply Project. This is going to benefit the people of Pralin, the people of Mamiku, Loba and Lao, the Monipo Village, Grass Street, Pasias, St. Mary, La Pointe, Cooley Town, Margaret Tooth, Vietnam. Mr. Speaker, we're speaking about more than half of the community. Yeah. We're speaking about more than half of the Mikunov constituency. And Mr. Speaker, you ask, how did we get to the stage where we are today? Over 4 decades ago, Mr. Speaker, the Passias Water Supply Project commenced and completed. And this project has seen Hurricane Allen, more than one. It has seen Hurricane, the Christmas trough, Mr. Speaker, Hurricane Debbie, I think in 1994, I was still a little boy. Hurricane Thomas in 2010. I took a look at the technology that was used in that particular system, Mr. Speaker. This system works on gravity. The catchment for this current system, to be able to get to this catchment, Mr. Speaker, it would take, on average, after you drive, you would have to park and walk for in excess of 3 hours to just get to the catchment. And on days, or if you have hurricanes, and you have difficulty, it becomes very difficult for WASCO to be able to access the areas because of how remote it is. And this has caused problems throughout the community. And I know that you have people like Ms. Tessa, and who would give me leaks 24/7, Mr. Speaker, because they believe that it's long overdue and that we really should have, government should really take some form of intervention as it relates to WASCO on the water supply in Passias. Because water is not something, Mr. Speaker, that is a luxury. Water is a necessity. The slogan says it, water is life. And when you have schools, you have elderly persons who rely on water. And we live in a rural area. Mikunov is a rural area, Mr. Speaker. We're not the community where everybody can afford a 1,000 or 2,000 gallon tank for storage. And even that, Mr. Speaker, does not suffice, because we've had on numerous occasions, too numerous to mention, Mr. Speaker, when the water supply, when we don't have water in the taps in Mikunov, it goes on for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, sometimes 8 days, sometimes 10 days, Mr. Speaker. And even if you have the comfort of a 1,000 gallon tank, Mr. Speaker, within 3 or 4 days, there is no water. And even the remedial measures that WASCO try, where they pass with the water trucks, Mr. Speaker, this in itself provides its own challenges, because the truck can only go certain places. So, for instance, the people on the base, those people inside by Furniture City, they would not be able to get any water because the WASCO trucks are not able to enter or access these areas. And these people are denied water, notwithstanding the fact that they continue to pay their water bills like all the people in Castries, Viewfort, Cap Estate, and the likes. And, Mr. Speaker, it had to take a caring government. It had to take a prime minister who understands what it is not to have running water at your home. It had to take a prime minister who listens, Mr. Speaker. And even before I thank the prime minister, Mr. Speaker, I like to give Jack their jacket, Mr. Speaker, so I will not make it seem like nothing was done over the time that the former administration was in government. There was a replacement tank, a bigger tank placed at Roba. There was and they also did some rehabilitative works on the tank in St. Mary. That's St. Mary, Pastor St. Mary. So there was some works done, Mr. Speaker, but that in itself did little to nothing to help solve the problem of the water. And it just shows, Mr. Speaker, that the current system is one that can no longer, it has met its capacity. Currently, Mr. Speaker, we have in excess of 4,700 persons living within the areas that I just mentioned. And WASCO has, I think, Mr. Speaker, over 2,000 water connections within that area. So when you have in excess of 2,000 people, Mr. Speaker, 2,000 homes without water for a period of 8 days, imagine the Passias Combined School, the Emmanuel SDA School, the preschools within the vicinity, Mr. Speaker, and these children have had to stay home. Myra Sachs daycare. These children have had to stay home, Mr. Speaker, because for days and days there is no running water in the tap. So as parliamentary representative, Mr. Speaker, I want to express my gratitude to the Prime Minister. And he said it. I came and I asked for it because I felt the pressure, Mr. Speaker. I always accede to the request of my constituents. And at every meeting that we have, and even the last community meeting that I had, although it had nothing to do with Wasco, we were speaking about the Wen playing field and the cemetery. Questions were raised about the water shortages that we experience in Miku North, especially in the northern end of the constituency, and persons really wanted to know what it is that, or what is the plan that we have. And I'm happy to say that we don't have a plan, but we're taking action. And the Prime Minister has seen it fit. And Mr. Prime Minister, I want the records to show that I want to express my full gratitude to you and to the other cabinet colleagues for seeing the need. And these are projects, Mr. Speaker. These are not projects that we are going to so key gain Kesa. There is gain in that project, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you that there is a lot of gain in that project, because right now, what this is going to do is going to really help solve that problem. And I can tell you, when I do my community tours, my house visits, everywhere in the community, somebody has a complaint about qui tells about Glossa, qui sacs about situation Glossa. And I know people like Pepe and Alan and those other Wasco, these individuals who work for Wasco within the community, they come under a lot of pressure. At times, persons would even insult them and they have to take the blows for Wasco. But we have to be honest and say that the current system, it cannot supply, it has outlived its usefulness, if you want to put it that way, Mr. Speaker. The capacity at the time when this system was set up, there was not so much development in the community. We've seen so much expansion. The Wen, quite a bit of expansion have happened in the Wen area, in the Mamiku area, and because it has become very expensive, Mr. Speaker, because of the amount of pressure that we're putting on the current Wasco system, it has become a challenge for Wasco to even allow persons to put in the necessary infrastructure for individuals when they want to go into land expansion or to prepare their land for sale. So I know there are persons like Octavian and others who would welcome such an initiative. But I think one of the persons who would be the happiest is Ms. Tessa Mangal, because she has even gone to social media, Mr. Speaker, to express her feelings about the lack of water in the community. And she is someone who has a water tank, and when she complains, her water tank has already run dry. So you can imagine how persons who don't have access to a water tank, what type of situation that they have to endure. Ça m'a dit là pas toi, Mr. Speaker, because là, chaque monde qui a coûté qui sorti mot pour expressement, c'est plus gros citoyen. Et que vous voulez savoir, chaque fois que vous jouez les chimères, vous voulez savoir qui ça nous a fait about situation, là, nous toujours pas néglo, c'était un commune. Et système là, nous ni à mot pour à présent, Mr. Speaker, et bien 4 chimères. Système ça, ni pour supporter Jean Poilin, Jean Mamikou, Jean Moupo, Jean Grass Street, Jean La Pointe, Jean Vietnam, Jean Magouetout, Jean Sainte-Marie, Jean Loba. Et puis, situation c'est une que tant que qu'il a prise, il est trop petit, et puis il y a un high pressure, il est trop petit pour tout le monde l'eau. Et puis ça, il a fait, c'est qu'il la panique l'eau, et puis côté à côté à catchment là il y a prise pour yo joindre là, ça c'est côté machine passe à aller so moun les Wasco les la pluie tomber fait descendre il ka baoué là n'a pas ko go street là il ka baoué pour yo Haïti yo ni pour faire ça par la main, ça c'est pas bagay qui a fait par quoi so Jean Wasco ni pour joindre manière pour marcher là et après yo about 3 éditeur pour arriver ko catchment là arriver là pour tirer et puis ça qu'a fait la situation pour délai après combien de jours pour nous avier joindre gloire cité nous avec délai nous joindre gloire yon côté ka joindre c'est ration yo ka ration gloire et ben délai gloire ka venir deuxième matin les gars fait troisième matin la panique gloire encore et puis ça a fait toute l'autre qualité problème en commune il a fait la situation pour l'école ni pour fermer parce que c'est maman là passe à l'école parce que toilette yo panique gloire après vite là yo panique gloire pour yo ça laver la main yo c'est tichani pour vivre yo caillou et qu'a mis les parents bas pressure parce que yo ni pour waiter puis c'est maman là parce que yo pas sa voix seulement à l'école parce que l'école fermée et ça a fait délai ça a aller pour délai 8 jours 9 jours monsieur explique avec nous pas ça contenir con et puis la tenue même gouvernement là avant moi problème ça c'est pas un problème qui commençait avant hier et bien hier problème ça c'est un problème monsieur explique depuis moi même t'ai à l'école nous ni problème ça un micro problème ça c'est un coup combien de fois parlementaire pas venir yo joue un problème là et puis yo quitté là parce que yo gagnent même si ça a affecté tout le monde pour une raison et pour l'autre mais pas ça pour qui raison mais yo pas nécessaire pour yo ça dealer puis problème ça that nous tenir Asie Carolette pour Glo Mikonov mais le gouvernement ça et puis premier ministre ça il est important monsieur speaker moi dit comme ça that moi ba pressure les moi aller faire les moi aller kai ay la porte moun ay parler puis yo tout monde ka élé about situation gloire et puis moi dit n'a parler puis premier ministre puis n'a qui ça fait et puis moi parler puis premier ministre puis parti catcher deux fois il dit moi qui ça fait et puis pas j'ai longtemps après me fini parler puis premier ministre il dit mais comme ça date nous ka aider Wasco so that Wasco ka ça aider ces gens Mikonov et puis moi voulais remercier premier ministre pour qu'avoir nécessaire pour qu'avoir important Mr. Speaker pour mener motion ça d'ouvre kay concitoyen et pour qu'avoir nécessaire pour aider gens pour et puis glo parce que glo c'est pas bagaille date nous ça fait style et puis nous briser glo pour nous vivre glo c'est la vie et puis pour qu'avoir important comme dit la tena chay moun avant nous quitter là et que pas nécessaire pour mener et bien pour improve système là qui était dans mon repos et comme dit yo te fait des petits bagages yo mène un tank 100,000 gallons là-bas et puis yo fait un travail à sous tank là qui était 7 maris mais ça pas assez parce que système là qui mené gloire tank là c'est même système là qui ni problème là mais ça nous a fait ordre c'est nous a ranger système là et ce système là nous a ranger now nous système là Wasco kay mettre à présent c'est yon ko yo kay ni ça veut dire pompe système il pas kay carry là sous gravity et puis système là kay à côté si la ni goglo si la mauvais temps Wasco il pas kay pour Wasco débé 3 jours pour arriver pour aller pour nettoyer Wasco kay ça drive pour arriver là et puis kay ça ranger bagay là so nous ka expect from les l'argent ça a dépassé et puis les systèmes là improve nous ka expect that temps nous ka espérer visiteur nous ka espérer après mauvais temps pour nous en cité nous that ça kay descend et puis nous ka ça jouer un glo peut-être débé 3 éditeur 4 éditeur 5 éditeur après glo descend parce que nous pas ça espérer Mikonov pour 8 jours pour glo especially nous dans communauté commune qui rural nous dans commune c'est pas tout le monde qui ni l'argent pour acheter tank et puis c'est mon qui ni tank là you can still complain that tank you can chance vide avant Wasco vie la gloire so Mr. Speaker moi voulais dire that moi can supporter motion ça I want to express my full support for this motion Mr. Speaker I know that the people of Mikonov are very excited with this particular motion and it just goes to show Mr. Speaker the general position of this government and the Central Labour Party. This government is one that listens to the cries of people. It's one that does not just listen but acts and puts policies in place, takes action to bring relief to people. And whereas Mr. Speaker, you see, you would have, I see social media posts about myself saying I have secret parliamentary rep and the people of Labour having secret meeting in Mikonov and they want to know what the secret meeting is about. And I can tell you what the secret meeting is about, Mr. Speaker. The secret meeting is about ensuring that we have a water supply for the people of Monrepo, Pastia, Slapwet. The secret meeting is about ensuring that the jetty for Mikonov is delivered. The secret meeting is about ensuring that yesterday the fishermen of Mikonov had a fat deployed and that they get the same courtesies extended to them as other people. The secret meeting was to ensure that the when playing film, Mr. Speaker, can start the secret meeting. And so if they think it's a secret, either it's public. The meeting is to ensure that the cemetery in Mikonov and the expansion, the cemetery expansion project is going to take off and that the people of Mikonov are going to get and Monrepo are going to get a cemetery that they deserve. So this is what the secret meetings that I'm having is about, Mr. Speaker. So they don't need to come. They can ask me and I'll tell them what the meetings. I'll even give them the minutes of the meetings. It's public for everybody to see. And they just start to see secret meeting. If it's secret meeting they're looking for, Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that we can see a little bit of discomfort in the community. A lot of people going around trying to see what can they do, but it's too late, Mr. Speaker. Miku North is with the St. Lucia Labour Party. And Miku North is staying with the St. Lucia Labour Party, Mr. Speaker. And under my watch, Miku says no. Et puis, you paid Moute, you paid this, and you prefer tout le monde you voulez, Mr. Speaker. Miku Kaiwete Sanu. And I've made it my responsibility and my duty, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that I continue to remain with the people of Miku North. And I continue to stay with them, I continue to support them, I continue to ensure that their voices are heard. And it's because I make it my responsibility to make sure that their voices are heard. Today, we are able to come to this honorable house, Mr. Speaker, with this motion to bring relief to several thousands of people in the community. And these are the type of projects, Mr. Speaker, that really makes me feel good as a parliamentary rep, Mr. Speaker. You sit down and you see these children who are the parents' complaints, Mr. Speaker. Even on social media, they go and they tell you about the children can't go to school, Mr. Speaker. And come in here and you know, oh boy, once and for all, we maybe can bring this problem to a halt, and children are not going to be denied school days because of lack of water at the schools. And even if the school, with the current system that they have and with the current storage facilities that they have, Mr. Speaker, about a day, the water tanks at the school last merely a day. So once the water shortage extends or prolongs beyond a day, then school must close. So, and I know that the Minister of Education will say a few words on how this project will also benefit him as Minister of Education, because I know he too comes under some pressure from the teachers and even parents as it relates to school closing in my community. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that I'm very happy that today we are in this house with this motion. I know, as I said earlier, the people of Miku North are also very happy. And today is a very historic day for us, and that is what Miku North is about. We continue to make history in Miku North. The representation has been one of that kind, Mr. Speaker, where people are active participants in what happened in the community. We don't impose our will on them. We listen to them and we deliver on what they request. And that is one of the things that they've requested. So to be able to come here today and to be able to deliver on that, Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure as the parliamentary rep to be able to stand. So I want to say thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Prime Minister for ensuring that we delivered for the people of Miku North. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Dennery North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the motion moved by the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, in which he sought the approval of this Parliament to borrow US $1.2 million to finance the Patience Community Water Supply Project. Mr. Speaker, I rise for two reasons. Firstly, I know how disconcerting and how distressing it can be for a parliamentary representative with water issues in his constituency, having lived that, Mr. Speaker, for the better part of a decade before, as was expected, a government of the St. Lucia Labour Party rescued the people of Dennery North from their water woes. Mr. Speaker, secondly, I'm rising because of my sheer admiration for the determination and perseverance of the current Member of Parliament for Miku North. And thirdly, Mr. Speaker, I rise because I know the feeling of vindication that such an investment into a water project in a community can evoke from a colleague parliamentarian. Mr. Speaker, this is a timely intervention. It is a timely investment in the constituency of Mico North, and more specifically, Mr. Speaker, it is a timely intervention and investment in the lives of the people of Monrepo and environs. And whereas the motion speaks, Mr. Speaker, to the Pastures Community Water Supply Project, as the Member of Parliament for Mico North would have explained in his very brief presentation, Mr. Speaker, the communities or little enclaves in the Mico North constituency to benefit from that project are a lot more than just Pastures itself. You heard the member mention Loba, he mentioned Prale, he mentioned Pastures, and all the other little pocket communities in Mico North who will be benefiting from this. Mr. Speaker, the water problems of that particular community, as was the case in Dennery North a few years ago, are twofold. It is one of supply or catchment issues, treatment issues, and one of sheer quality. So in addition to insufficient supply at certain times of the year, Mr. Speaker, what you find is that when in the rainy season you have a consistent flow in the catchment area, the water that reaches the homes of the people at times have been found wanting in terms of quality. And we know that particular belt, Mr. Speaker, of the country has suffered over the years with a lot of waterborne illnesses as a result of the quality issues that I mentioned. Mr. Speaker, it is a problem that basically manifests itself in the banana producing communities. And Mr. Speaker, there's a direct link with those communities where the banana production was substantial during the days of green gold. People used to venture into the forested parts and indiscriminately cut down trees to plant bananas and to tap into that particular revenue source that was substantial for families, communities, and by extension, our country. And so, Mr. Speaker, what we saw happening over time was that the watershed was destroyed and we had supply issues as a result of heavy siltation and sedimentation in catchment areas and riverbeds being compromised, etc. Mr. Speaker, this problem does not affect only people at the household level, but you would have heard from the member from Mico North that schools are impacted as well. And as the minister responsible for education, I can tell you, almost on a weekly basis, we are inundated with calls from principals and school administrators as it relates to how the daily operations of those institutions are being compromised as a result of water shortages in the communities. So, Mr. Speaker, loss of instruction time has been one of the issues we've had to deal with as a result of a water supply in a community that is not serving the community as it ought to. Mr. Speaker, I also know that it happens in some of the communities that the member mentioned, as would have been the case in places like Oleon and the more elevated parts in Dennery North when we were suffering a similar fate. People would have had to wake up, Mr. Speaker, as early as 1 o'clock in the morning, when a lot of pipes in homes and in government establishments and public facilities would have been closed. It would have created a buildup in the supply lines that would have caused more elevated communities to get a trickle. And so in some families, it operated almost as a shift system, where some people had to be up from midnight to 2 in the morning to fill up whatever barrels, buckets, or whatever containers they had and go to bed. And from 2, 3 in the morning, another family member or two would have had to do the same thing just to ensure that when the entire family is up by 7 o'clock in the morning, there is a sufficient supply in the house to allow for domestic chores, to allow for children to bathe, to allow, Mr. Speaker, for the adults themselves to shower, to go to work, to earn a daily bread. So, Mr. Speaker, quite apart from instruction time, laundry services would have been compromised, and, Mr. Speaker, basic domestic chores would have been affected as a result of the insufficient water supply in those communities. But Mr. Speaker, on the political front, and I make no apologies for being a politician, and I will at every opportunity in this House and elsewhere tout the record of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And the St. Lucia Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, has demonstrated over time that we do not discriminate. During the days of the premiership of the member for Vieux-Fort South, who is not here with us, Mr. Speaker, he postulated a doctrine of equity and fairness. And he always, at every opportunity, Mr. Speaker, ensured that resources were deployed in this country on a needs basis, informed by objectivity and a genuine concern and love for people. In his footsteps, Mr. Speaker, the member for Castries East, the current Prime Minister, has gone even beyond the standards set by the member for Vieux-Fort South in terms of how he allocates state resources to meet the plight of people in this country, irrespective of which constituency irrespective of the constituencies in which they reside. And the record of the St. Lucia Labour Party in the Micoud North constituency, a constituency from adult suffrage, Mr. Speaker, that has historically supported the United Workers' Party, save and except for the last election, where the honorable member and deputy speaker demonstrated beyond the wildest imaginations of many, Mr. Speaker, that he could have won that seat, and he did it in grandstand. Notwithstanding this St. Lucia Labour Party victory at the 2021 elections, from adult suffrage, from the time Columbus, if he ever did set foot in the Caribbean, Micoud North always voted for the United Workers' Party. And when you sit and you critically examine the interventions that have been made in that constituency by government in its broadest sense, Mr. Speaker, without doubt, you can tell that it is the St. Lucia Labour Party that has invested the most resources in that constituency. Mr. Speaker, the Micoud Primary School, we all remember what obtained in the village close to the shoreline. What obtained for decades as a school building, the St. Lucia Labour Party decided that, Mr. Speaker, that was unacceptable. And under the watch of the current Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Castries East, who was the Minister for Infrastructure at the time, Mr. Speaker, he led the charge, working very closely with the then Finance Minister and Prime Minister, member for Vieux-Fort South, and they constructed a world-class, state-of-the-art primary school for the children of Micoud. Mr. Speaker, the fire station is yet another example of a project which the St. Lucia Labour Party executed in the Micoud constituency to ensure that the firemen who serviced that particular geographic pocket would have had working conditions that would have brought out the best in them, Mr. Speaker. The police in Micoud, like many across the country, roughly 2 decades ago, Mr. Speaker, had to endure some of the worst working conditions in the entire country, Mr. Speaker. And the St. Lucia Labour Party government, under the stewardship of the member for Vieux-Fort South, Mr. Speaker, constructed a police station in Micoud to ensure that the officers from Micoud and who worked in Micoud would have enjoyed comfort levels that were comparable to that of the best as far as police facilities in this country were concerned. Mr. Speaker, you've heard the Prime Minister in the public space very recently speak of a jetty for Micoud. And I remember many years ago, before I was even considered as a candidate in general elections, I always had a passion, Mr. Speaker, for the politics. And I journeyed all the way to Micoud South to listen to the messages that were coming from the various platforms during a by-election. And I remember a gentleman by the name of George. He's a former teacher of mine at St. Mary's College, but he participated in the by-election as an independent candidate. And at one of his meetings, somebody stayed on not from the platform, but a man in the audience said in Creole, and I quote, "Mr. Mi Hotez, gouvernement flambeau fait ça créer fishing complex by moun tout partout en cette lycée. Les bas venir et qui fait pli by moun as far as fish landing facilities are concerned. Mais Micoud c'est seul côté
Seul côté, empêcher ni pour lever devant jour, rouler chilote li monter pour arriver bon jour nuit, et mettre pieds en glo la main fouette là pour y entourer à bon bateau pour aller pêcher. Mr. Speaker, today, Miku, the Miku village, is one of the few fishing communities, if not the only. A community, Mr. Speaker, that through thick and thin stayed with the United Workers' Party. A community, Mr. Speaker, that stayed with the United Workers' Party even when facilities were being constructed for horses, Mr. Speaker. They had to roll up their pants and brave the cold seawater at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they could not have gotten a jetty, Mr. Speaker, to cause them, Mr. Speaker, to go out there and earn a daily bread in comfortable conditions for their families. But you have heard the Prime Minister, as I said, in the public space, and you would have heard utterances from the member for Miku North that this St. Lucia Labour Party administration, we have committed resources to ensuring that sometime next year, the people, the fishers in particular of Miku South, will have a jetty that would provide comfort levels that would cause them to be more efficient when they go out there in search of their catch. Mr. Speaker, it is the St. Lucia Labour Party government that has committed resources for the expansion and upgrade of the Monrepo Cemetery under this Prime Minister working collaboratively with the current Member of Parliament for Miku North. Mr. Speaker, you would have heard the Member of Parliament for Miku North, and I'm sure the sentiments have been expressed too by the Member for Gruzi, the Minister for Youth Development and Sports, that as we speak today, Mr. Speaker, plans are advanced for the upgrade of the Wen playing field, where the young sportsmen and women in Miku North and Monrepo more specifically, Mr. Speaker, will be able to express their sporting talents under lights, and spectators would be able to enjoy the contest with sitting accommodation and all the amenities that make for modern sporting infrastructure. So, Mr. Speaker, it is important to place that in context. This is more than just a water project. And as I said, it is yet another demonstration that when the St. Lucia Labour Party is in government, we do not discriminate. When the St. Lucia Labour Party is in government, we, Mr. Speaker, deploy resources based on the needs of constituencies, irrespective of whether that constituency is represented in the parliament by a member of the opposition. We, Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday spoke at length about the monies being borrowed from the Afri-Exim Bank for school rehabilitation. And Mr. Speaker, the schools mentioned were not schools that are in the confines of constituencies represented by members of the government, but schools in constituencies represented by the opposition were mentioned, Mr. Speaker. So it is very important for us not to lose sight of the fact that it is just another project that the government is executing. But very importantly, Mr. Speaker, very, very importantly, we have to let it resonate that when we are in government, the people of Miku North stand to benefit more than when the party that they have demonstrated loyalty towards for decades is in office. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. I believe it will bring a lot of relief to the people of Miku North, and when it is completed, as the member quite rightly said, Mr. Speaker, the people of Miku North will be better for it. Mr. Speaker, je voulais dire that Jodia moi du bodisi a moi supporter démarche gouvernement qu'a point pour prêter 1.2 million dollars américains pour ça aider la situation globale à communauté d'Henry à Miku North. Mr. Speaker, moi c'est un membre parlement qui a représenté en constituency d'Henry North qui en temps passé tenir pile difficulté et puis problème et puis situation globale qu'on nous connaît. Mais le gouvernement Léba, Mr. Speaker, tu prends des marches pour qui nous déjoignent le gouvernement Mexique. Un cadeau, 5 millions de dollars américains. Et qui va nous faire joindre là, ça, Mr. Speaker? C'est même parlement pour la Boui qui est ici et puis nous qui était allé dans un meeting OAS et puis Mr. Speaker, il tient parole et puis ça nous a créé Foreign Affairs Minister Mexico. And he, in conversation with the Foreign Affairs Minister of Mexico, He impressed on them, Mr. Speaker, a need for resources to cure a problem in a community known as Denrinoff, where people were consuming water of a quality that was below consumption. And Mr. Speaker, true to form, the member for Labrie was able to convince his counterpart in Mexico to cause his government to make the resources available. Upon realizing that the $5 million US, Mr. Speaker, would not have been enough, the St. Lucia Labour Party government approached the Caribbean Development Bank for a loan of 22 million EC dollars to complement the 5 million US that Mexico would have granted to St. Lucia. And that is how the Denrinoff Water Project, Mr. Speaker, that came into being, and our problem was solved. But you know what was disconcerting about that, Mr. Speaker? Notwithstanding all of the pronouncements I would have made in this honorable chamber, there's a particular member of this house who believed that it was his place to cut the ribbon when the project was completed. But Mr. Speaker, this would pale in comparison to the bigger issue where today the people of Denrinoff, Oleon, Gadet, La Pelle, La Ressource, Richfond, Austin Hill, Belmont, Granvin, Tamazo, tout partout en Valia, moun ka bwe bon et c'est ça moun ka kwe ki kay fait en constituency Mikunov, les projets glo ça la fini. Mr. Speaker, ours is a caring government, and there has never been in the recent past a project or an intervention where expression to the mantra putting people first is more glaring than this rather project, and there's so many others to come for that particular constituency. And I must place on the record, Mr. Speaker, my gratitude and my satisfaction working with this Prime Minister and the members of his cabinet in delivering for the people of St. Lucia. The Prime Minister is on the record at every cabinet meeting every Monday, reminding us that this is a team sport. This is not about individualism. And we cannot deliver to the people of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker, if everybody stays in his lane, minds his own business without a care for what is happening elsewhere. So when that project is executed in Mikunov, I know what it means to the member for Mikunov, Mr. Speaker, but I feel a particular sense of vindication and satisfaction, and I'm sure the sentiment that I'm currently expressing is one that represents the sentiments of my colleagues on this side of the House. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I unequivocally support the motion to borrow $1.2 million US for the Pastians Water Redevelopment Project.
The member for Swaziland-Saltibus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, before I address the substantive motion in front of us, I just want to comment on two matters. One has to deal with your pronouncements at our last sitting where you touted the achievements of Parliament. But there is still this nagging issue, Mr. Speaker, where copies of Hansard cannot be made available and we have to rely on recordings. And you can well imagine the hustle it is to go through a recording to try to identify, something that was said. So I'm hoping that, we could see some significant improvement in that aspect of it. But I commend you on the...
If I can just respond right away. We have written to the Office of the Prime Minister for the establishment of a separate Hansard the transcribing unit, and I think we are getting some positive response, so we will be able to update the Hansads. But if you need a specific report, we can get it transcribed for you.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, because I wanted to remind, the Honorable Prime Minister on a matter that, when we had first brought the draft of the Health and Security Levy for general observation and discussion, one of the recommendations that I brought forward to him was the whole issue of recognizing the sanitary napkins, how important it was to include it as one of the exempt items. And I was very happy that he did it, Mr. Speaker. And, sometimes, I don't like blowing my horn, but just give me my kudos when they come. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the other thing the Prime Minister said in his opening remarks, and he has continually said it, but there's a misleading item to it, a misleading part of it, where he continues to say that he provides resources to the members opposite. In fact, in one news item I read that he said, I provide the necessary resources to the members opposite. And while it is true, Mr. Speaker, and my colleague from Denry North continuously reminds me that he served for 6 years and he did not get a cent. He continues to remind me, so he tells me I need to be grateful, and he continuously reminds me whenever I said to him, but the Prime Minister is misleading when he gives the impression, because the people in my community believe that I am receiving similar resources like the members of cabinet, and I get a lot of pressure because they say that I get work and I send it back. So I want to set the record straight, that while I'm appreciative of what comes, Mr. Speaker, but it's misleading to give the general impression that we are getting the necessary resources to do work in our community. Mr. Speaker, I move to the substantive discussion. Yes, I get $100,000 a quarter.
That's enough. I got zero. That's 400,000 a year.
Mr. Speaker, I move on.
That's 4.
Mr. Speaker, there's one thing that we agree on both sides of the House.
PM so much money.
There is one thing we agree on both sides of the House, Mr. Speaker, and that is water is life. We agree that water is life. And I believe Wasco has been an unfair target by many St. Lucians. And I also believe, Mr. Speaker, that Wasco has suffered even significant, greater challenges since Hurricane Thomas. And these are things that we need to be, recognize, Mr. Speaker. But my colleague to my direct left, Mr. Speaker, and I must say, he looks very striking in his colors today. Colors of... He tried to represent the colors of Wasco, but he needs a deeper blue. And we get along quite well, Mr. Speaker, because we have various similarities in our socializing, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, he said something, and I just want for the records, because when the Prime Minister referred to the Patience water supply project in last city, and something I remembered a similar discussion when we were in office, because I remember when the Patience project was mentioned, there was a discussion about feral pigs, cochon marron, and the damage that it does to the various catchment areas. And I remember because I asked permission then if I could go and hunt some of these cochon marron. So I remember, Mr. Speaker, very distinctly, and that's why I had to get it. A press release that was released on Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, to the Patience water upgrade. And Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I will just... Residents of Patience will have their water wells addressed with the soon-to-be commissioned water project in the community. Less than 1 year ago, on November 25, 2019, to be exact, officials from Wasco and the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, SSDF, held a contract signing ceremony for the Patience Mikud Water Supply Improvement Project. The scope of the project included the replacement of a 50,000-gallon water tank with a 100,000-gallon tank and repairs to the water tank at Lombard, as well as some drainage work. The project was promised by the parliamentary rep for Mikud North, Honorable Dr. Gail Rigopert. To date, works have been completed on the Lombard tank. The old one was demolished and a new 100,000-gallon tank erected, and the necessary connections are now in place. Repairs on the existing 50,000-gallon tank included a replacement of faulty sheets and thorough cleaning of the tank. The resurfacing of the access road to the Lombard tank site was also part of the project and has since been completed, with only the drainage works now outstanding. Mr. Speaker, I speak to that because, while the member indicated that some work had started, it was very fleeting in his comment, and I'm always intrigued when we speak about WASCO and the providing water, because, and the reason I'm intrigued, Mr. Speaker, because, we're in 2023, and you would think that this is one of the basic things that, must be provided and must be, identified by various governments to ensure that, our population does not have that. Because, Mr. Speaker, if anything, water is one of the things that touch the very lives, the souls of every single resident. And maybe one day, we will identify, and I'm not just talking about, anybody that we seem to have really, and I've spoken about it on several occasions, we speak the amount of poverty in our country. But maybe one day we'll be able to identify the people who truly cannot pay water and WASCO and provide maybe a limit. And, that could be one of the subsidies that government can provide to some of these very, very vulnerable families, Mr. Speaker. Because, it is downright shame, crying shame that in 2023, there are people who are without running water as a result of not being able to pay a WASCO bill. And I speak to the very poor and vulnerable people who really have no means, Mr. Speaker. So I'm hoping that day will come, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I spoke to some of the challenges that WASCO has. And just before demitting office, Mr. Speaker, we wrote to BNTF under the 10th program, Mr. Speaker, to identify a 100,000 gallon tank for Victoria Choiseul. And the grant was approved, but to date, we're still without that tank. I have noticed that the platform has been erected, and I'm hoping that that tank will be in place before the next dry season, Mr. Speaker, because that tank is supposed to benefit at least 13 communities in the constituency of Choiseul Saltibus. And now that I've mentioned Saltibus, Mr. Speaker, I took personal responsibility to visit the catchment in the Saltibus area and recognize that it's a catchment that is no longer, it has served its time, Mr. Speaker. And I felt that we need to identify another place where we could harvest that water to provide to the people of Saltibus. And I took it on my own. I invited staff of WASCO along with members of the community, and we trekked upriver, Mr. Speaker, to a place called Wavin Mabet. I'm sure the fittest of you all here may not be able to reach that area, Mr. Speaker. It was a very difficult trek, but we recognized, and the time we did that, Mr. Speaker, it was in the dry season, and we identified an area, Mr. Speaker, where you would think that we were in the rainy season, and WASCO was there. They were asked to, look at the feasibility, and I'm really hoping, that, government could provide the necessary resources, seek the necessary grants to really improve on the Saltibus water supply, Mr. Speaker, because for an area that lies within, the water belt in the forest area, it's a crying shame that, we cannot get the necessary water supply as required. In fact, if we were able to tap in that new area, Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that that water may serve as far as Labrie, because of what was indicated by the engineers and the other WASCO personnel that accompanied us. Mr. Speaker, I also want to speak because sometimes, we speak to some of the things that are done when various governments are in office, but we seem to breeze over very important things that have been accomplished. The last administration spent over $4.5 million in replacing pipes along the Groseley Highway at the same time that we had started the construction of the the section in Rodney Bay there, Mr. Speaker. And that also delayed the roadworks. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, we spent about $2.5 million in purchasing pipes, and about the contract to lay down these pipes was in the region of about $2 million, Mr. Speaker. And I think that's a project that we have to look at island-wide, because you look, Mr. Speaker, in fact, I experienced in Choiseul, where Wasco pipes continuously burst in the very same area time and time again. They dig up the road, they fix it. Within a week, that same area, Mr. Speaker, is compromised. I'm not sure why. I cannot, speak to it. I don't work at Wasco. But I think Wasco needs to come out and comprehensively speak about some of these challenges that they have. I know the former minister responsible for Wasco had discussions with the government of Cuba, I think it was, where we identified a particular material that was being used to construct water pipes, the 4-inch pipes. And I think there was supposed to have been some arrangement to bring down some of these pipes so that it could replace our overall pipe network. And I'm hoping that this government will continue to pursue that avenue, because the rusty pipes that we have supplying us with water, their time has long passed. So, Mr. Speaker, there's no doubt that a project like that is welcome by both sides, welcome by the entire population of St. Lucia. And I want to say we need more of these type of projects. Sometimes I wonder, and I speak to the mentality of both sides in terms of our supporters, whether some of these projects are not sexy enough to guarantee a seat in the next elections, and whether people want a little, the saying, give a man a fish or teach him to fish, whether that is more of a priority in terms of how voters look at things, Mr. Speaker. But things like that, Mr. Speaker, are very important, especially in the age that we're living in. And I'm looking forward to more things like that will strike at the very heart of our households, particularly the vulnerable. With that being said, Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Member for Castries Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to provide brief support on this motion to borrow the sum of funds for a water project. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to draw to the attention of members that indeed a water project like this is critical. I do not think that we have attained 100% coverage in terms of water access to the entire population, in spite of all what has happened in terms of development. And for a government at this time to continue to invest in the water sector is critical. Also, I need to draw to the attention of members that the Patience Water project that was implemented under the last administration are pipeline projects since 2016 at the St. Lucia Social Development Fund. In fact, those projects are pulled out and they are implemented. But we have a pipeline of water projects because under the Basic Needs Trust Fund, under the BNTF program, the water sector is a critical sector. In fact, the Caribbean Development Bank has agreed to remove other sectors under the BNTF program. So they no longer implement health projects, they move away from markets, and they have retained water and sanitation, access and drainage projects, education is three main sectors, and now they start looking at the issue of livelihoods. So over the years, recognizing that the grant agreement with the Basic Needs Trust Fund from one cycle to the next is limited. You get about 10 million. But we always have a pipeline of projects, of water projects, and this project was pulled out. It was implemented within the last administration, but these projects are there, and there are many more projects like this. I also want to inform members, Mr. Speaker, that our government, the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party, we've not just sat by and implement water project. There's been an important initiative targeting annoyances to our population. And that is why we have had, the Prime Minister allowed me to have a conversation with WASCO on the very thing that the member for Strozel spoke about. And I'm happy to just mention, it will be formalized, that WASCO has agreed to look at the ease of allowing persons to have access to water, especially persons who are living on family estates and cannot come up with the land papers. These persons in the past, it has been a difficult thing for them to get water connection, but WASCO has agreed that with a simple affidavit, persons on family estate will get water connection with a simple disclaimer. That being said, WASCO has agreed to also provide 24 free connections for poor persons every year, and they will meet part of the tariff. This was negotiated. So the issue of the water sector and responding to vulnerable population, we're not just establishing the network. And I can tell you, the St. Lucia Social Development Fund has invested millions of dollars in the water sector. Millions of dollars. In fact, I can tell you that water from Belvedere all the way to Bouton, it was the St. Lucia Social Development Fund that established that water project, and to establish a water system at the Bouton Gap to serve Bouton, and now we will bring water into Colombet. These projects were implemented. So our investment in the water sector, and I can tell you, when there was a change of administration, I was personally responsible for working with the then parliamentary representative to take water from Hill 20 to bring all the way down into the Dauphin area, because persons there were using water from tanks. So the participation of this government in establishing the St. Lucia Social Development Fund as a vehicle towards a development for vulnerable people has demonstrated that in so many ways that sometimes we forget to celebrate the policies of the Labour Party. The establishment of the James Belgrave Fund, the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, the National Conservation Authority, and so many pro-poor entities is so powerful, and it does well for poor people. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I just want to, make this point that water is so critical, and we're going to continue, and I know that the AG office through the Prime Minister is going to continue the conversation with WASCO. And like you rightly said, there are persons who are unable sometimes to pay the water bill, and it is difficult. But I've said to WASCO that it is so important that when there's a newborn in a home, a newborn baby, and I can tell you what it is to have a newborn baby in the home. I have a newborn, I'm a grandpa. You understand? When you have a newborn baby in the home, hygiene is so critical. You understand? Yes, yeah, Benoit Josima. You understand? Hygiene is so important. And when a young mother is unable to pay the bill, you need to ask yourself, what heart do you have to disconnect a home where there's a newborn baby? When there's a senior person, you understand, unable to pay the bill, but you see the demands, the need, it is heart-wrenching. And of course, it is something as a government that we are looking at. And that is why funds are made available to the $100,000 per quarter can go a long way in ensuring 100,000, 400 for the year from our Prime Minister can ensure that a number of persons in Strozel, you can avoid them being disconnected, or you can assist them in having water connection. That can be done, because the Prime Minister, I'm sure, would have said in this letter that you can use part of it to do some soft things, some social interventions. And I know that you are socially minded. So the people of Strozel, certainly on the advice of this Parliament, can go to the constituency office in Strozel and ensure that they do not get disconnected. Yes? So Mr. Speaker, so Mr. Speaker, we really want to applaud the government for investing in the water sector. This is not the end of it. We'll continue to ensure this government that every St. Lucian have access to pipe-borne water, because it's a right, it's a basic need, and this is not a luxurious good. It's a basic need and they need it. Thank you very much.
The member for Labrie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for granting me leave to make a brief intervention on this very important resolution. Mr. Speaker, I wish to support in very clear and categorical terms the resolution put forward to this Honorable House by the Honorable Minister for Finance to borrow an amount of US $1,203,224 from the CARICOM Development Fund to finance the Pasias Water Supply Community Project. This loan, Mr. Speaker, is highly concessional. It is to be repaid over 10 years, commencing from the first date after a grace period of 2 years following the date of the first disbursement. The loan is to be repaid loan disbursed and outstanding. This is commendable, Mr. Speaker, given the fact that inflation has driven up interest rates in the global environment that we're in today. And it signals with clarity that there is prudent management of the finances of this country. Mr. Speaker, the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party, headed by the Honorable Philip Joseph Pierre, the Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, is busy delivering to the people of St. Lucia, while the opposition is busy trying their best to destabilize our economy by organizing strikes and using Cambridge Analytica techniques to again try to befog the sound common sense of the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, whilst they speak and make noise, we are working. Instead of debating the major policy issues of the day, they are spending their time uselessly. I guess they have a lot of time on their hands, Mr. Speaker, attempting to defend the failed policies which the electorate rejected in the most emphatic fashion at the last general elections in July 26, 2021. They are now attempting their best to gaslight the electorate, trying to convince them that they did the wrong thing by booting them out of office. The same cast of characters, Mr. Speaker, who were overwhelmingly rejected by the electorate are again attempting once more to engage in subterfuge, Mr. Speaker. It is indeed a sad state of affairs, Mr. Speaker, as we have an opposition that has failed to engage in debate on the serious policy issues of the day. And Mr. Speaker, it appears, as I get into the cauldron of this debate, that the leader of the opposition is still called the Prime Minister by his supporters, fueling him. I think he's suffering from something they call chagrin pouvoir, honorable member, along with the others who are attempting to foment unrest at a time when the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party is delivering on the pressing but legitimate needs of the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, this resolution to borrow for the Pasias Community Water Supply Project is indeed a most worthy initiative and should have really been addressed by the last administration. And as my colleagues indicated, I mean, You just look into memory's eye. This is a constituency that supported the UWP, contributed significantly to banana production in this country, and how much of the monies went into their own development. You go around the constituency, the huge buildings you see, the homes, were built by blood, sweat, and tears. They built it because bananas were green gold prior to WTO. And that was their own efforts. Even those who did not make it to a secondary school and ended their school life in Standard 4, they had the FAR and they were able to go to Vieux Fort and make a demand for goods and services all over the island. They were able to do that. But how much of their blood, sweat, and tears went into the development of the constituency? Instead of squandering Wasco's money to build an administrative center in Vieux Fort and making a mess with the project to deseal the John Compton Dam, they should have instead focused on the core needs of the people. Mr. Speaker, when millions of dollars were spent preparing a foundation for the erection of an administrative building, and you take a little cuisine, a little shack, and come and put it on that foundation just to block the opportunity to proceed with the erection of a very important administrative building that would ensure that people can get services in the south that they do not necessarily have to come to the north, where there is an overbalance of population, to get basic services, Mr. Speaker. I need to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, that we need to deseal the John Compton Dam, but this last administration took project management to another level that has never seen before in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they are not concerned with the needs of the people, and they were concerned with spending money lavishly and wastefully to satisfy the FFFs. And I heard the member for Choiseul, Saltibus, talking about, oh, they spend $2 million over there to bring water along the Grosley Highway, and those things may be not sexy enough to bring votes, but we should do them all over the island. But Mr. Speaker, this is exactly what we were saying. When they spend $20 million on incinerators, we're saying spend it on water, spend it on the needs of the people of this country. When they took the $8 million to relocate Beausejour at Volet, that's what we're saying. Take it instead and invest it in the people's business. Instead of building a road for $13.6 million to accommodate DSH, take it and improve the water supply. This is what the Labour Party in essence was saying. Mr. Speaker, our government firmly believes in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, and in this regard, in achieving SDG 6. Mr. Speaker, the United Nations has determined that clean water and sanitation is a fundamental human right. I am sure that all members in this Honorable House would agree with this, Mr. Speaker. This SDG is about clean water and sanitation for all. According to the United Nations, the goal is to ensure availability and sustainable management of water for all. There are 6 outcome targets to this goal, and I wish to mention 3 of them in relation to the Patience Water Supply Community Project. These are providing safe and affordable drinking water, improve water quality, and ensure fresh water supplies. Mr. Speaker, I will now turn my attention to the project, namely the Patience Community Water Supply Project. The Patience water system, Mr. Speaker, has been a small intake located at Piton. Water flows from this small intake by gravity up to a supply storage facility in Lombard, where it gets disinfected. I repeat, Mr. Speaker, where it gets disinfected and subsequently distributed to approximately 10 homes. And you heard me, Mr. Speaker, at least 10 homes. And it involves Sainte Marie, Patience, Lombard, La Ho, Mon Repos, Wen Development, Mamicou, Poilin, La Pointe, Magwetout, and the member for Mikou North I said it goes all the way to Vietnam. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that there are at least 1,729 people in these communities. I mentioned that are served by the Patience water system. You would have thought that Patience, being in the constituency of Mico North, and I would say a former stronghold of the United Workers' Party, would have received priority attention. I say former deliberately, because there is no turning back with the honorable member for Mico North. But no, Mr. Speaker, the UWP neglected these people and was clearly expecting that the people from Mico North would continue to vote for them despite ignoring one of the most basic needs. Now, I'll tell you the difference between the Labour Party and the United Workers' Party. Even though Mico North did not vote for us, even in 1997, when there was 16-1, we built a police station there. We built a fire station there. We attended to Jabatis Hill, the primary school at Mico. And I can go on and on to say to you what the UWP, I don't take instructions from you, honorable member. I control my time in this honorable house, and I say what I want to say, honorable member. So let me proceed and resume normal navigation. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that if the member was concerned, and he says he's a UWP, but UWP is no more. The party is privatized now, so that is his party and he's doing whatever he wants. It's privatized. Now, Mr. Speaker, if they were concerned about Mico North, they would have attended to the pressing but legitimate needs of the people. And they cannot compare Mico North with Labrie. Labrie was dismembered from Vieux-Fort in 1974. 30 of those years since then have been occupied by them. And what has been their contribution? So if they could neglect their own, I can well understand what they have done to the constituency of Labrie-Auger. And you take your journey through the corridors of time, you'll realize that the Labrie Health Center, the Labrie Administrative Building, the Labrie Community Center, Vellon John Administrative Building, the jetty, you go all around on the roads, the playing field at Olibo, the roads that were built, all under a St. Lucia Labour Party administration. You know what the contribution was in 1992? In 87, when Mr. Neville Snack crossed the floor in this honorable house, spent 5 years with the UWP government. In 1992, on the eve of an election, they planted poles. They said they bring electricity to Lahore and Béwanger, and they put a lot of pipes there. They won the elections of 1992, and you know what they did? They uprooted every pole. All the pipes that were on the ground, they took them away and deprived the people. But when the Star of Freedom rose in 1997, God bless the people of the Labrie-Auger constituency. And of course, they said, let there be light at Lahore, and there was light. And water, which is life, reached Béwanger, the Labrie bypass. Can you imagine the Labrie bypass was deprived, removed the poles, and were able to electrify our areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and I recall whilst talking about electricity, Bouton, the UWP said it is better to relocate everybody from Bouton than to bring electricity there. But again, when the Star of Freedom rose in 1997, electricity with the member for Vieux-Fort South as Prime Minister and the Honorable François, they brought electricity down to Bouton. As a matter of fact, I have said before in this honorable house, a friend of mine who told me he was at Bouton, and he told me that when they brought the electricity to Bouton, the chickens at Bouton didn't even recognize it was night time, that they made Jus Ouvert believing that it was still daylight. And it was a day of celebration for them. At the last general elections, Mr. Speaker, the people said enough is enough and voted for the honorable member who sits in the House today, Mr. Speaker, as the member for Mikunof. Very serious, very sober representative, and is pursuing the development of Mikunof, addressing the defects via patient endeavor. And he has the support of the cabinet, and he has the support of the Minister for Finance and Prime Minister of the country. Mr. Speaker, he won a handsome majority, an expression of the confidence placed in the honorable member. This confidence has been repaid in the form of the Patience Community Water Supply Project being debated in this house today, among many other things. Mr. Speaker, according to WASCO, this water supply is one of the worst supplied areas and is definitely in need of a more reliable raw water supply. And of course, to ensure that it is treated to improve the water quality. Mr. Speaker, this system is extremely vulnerable to overland pollution emanating from surface runoffs when it rains. Because of the intake's remoteness, Mr. Speaker, when it rains, the operators would be unaware. And it's only after customers begin complaining would they realize that it has rained. The water supply system would have to be flushed and disinfected before better quality water is released back into the network. That's one. Consequently, this results in water supply downtime. This can happen anytime, Mr. Speaker, and is especially worse when it happens during the night. Conversely, during the dry season, when water raw quality would be better, the volume becomes too low to supply the entire community, thus subjecting customers and residents to water rationing and trucking. This can be a very costly exercise for WASCO, and more importantly, a major inconvenience for residents in Pasias and the other areas, including Vietnam. These are people who have to go to work, Mr. Speaker, send their children to school, and they expect to receive water to carry out their household chores. WASCO has identified a new area on the Piton River, but because of its low elevation, Mr. Speaker, a pumping setup system has to be installed. A multi-pronged project approach has been developed by WASCO to solve this major water problem affecting many communities, including the Pasias community. It is anticipated that on completion of this project, the Pasias community will have a more reliable and safer water supply which meets the needs of its residents. There is only one thing left to do, Mr. Speaker, for the honorable member for Labrie Auger to give full support to the resolution for borrowing US $1,203,224 from the CARICOM Development Fund to finance the Pasias Water Supply Community Project under the terms and conditions detailed in the resolution. Mr. Speaker, long live the people of Mikunof, long live the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, long live the St. Lucia Labour Party. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
A member from Miku South.
Bon, pour caution, hein, foi moi. Mr. Speaker, it may take the House a little time to come down from the altitude. Because I'm accustomed to the member flying in a plane, but these days I see he's flying in the rocket, and he's going on a different thing. So, Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to join the Prime Minister in celebrating and acknowledging our success at UNESCO and achieving our presidency of that organization. But the success points to continuity. And so I think hopefully the Prime Minister and even the member from Labrie would join us in also thanking Ambassador Shaguri, who has been our ambassador over several different administrations and has established a significant foothold in that organization, has developed an incredible rapport with all of the other countries, and the respect that St. Lucia has gained at UNESCO, in a large part, not by himself, but in a large part, is attributable to him, but I think for all of us, in allowing that institution to have that level of continuity. I was again saddened today, Mr. Speaker, that we're here to talk about something as important as water, and that the temptation to politicize even this little project could not be resisted by members on the opposite side. When we want to speak about this water project, and I listened very intently, and I'm hoping that the general public also listened very intently to all the reasons that were given today by many members as to how important water is. Schools, sanitary, basic standard of living that we all have come to expect and need in order to having a regular water supply of clean water. A regular water supply of clean water. With glowing reports how important it is. And then entwined within that, this whole thing about Mico North and Mico South, that they intend to capture Mico South next election. This is the same government that in 1997 won Mico South. You should remember. One term. One term. And the reason for the one term is because the words were much louder than the deeds. This is the same government that today wants to say that they're a caring government. They care about the people in Mico North, and that they hope to show the people in Mico South how much they care. But I want to remind them that this is the same government that in 2006 and 2011, the then Arson James started a water project to service the people in T-Rocher, going all the way down to Duga and Lacoville. Because the persons on that side of the constituency did not have a regular supply of water. And the same things they were speaking of, the rationing of water. You had to figure out what day you were going to get water, whether tanks were sufficient, and the investment that people were having to make in buying tanks, because this went on for years. And Mr. James ended up using part of his CDP resources to buy a tank and to work with WASCO. And when the government changed in 2011, for 5 years, that project was discontinued. Now, how does that action meet the test of what was being said in the House today? What? How could anybody genuinely believe the members on the other side when we don't even have to go that far back to see what was taking place? I'm not going to get into the emotional aspect of the suffering that took place on that side of the constituency, because you've all articulated it better than I ever can. But it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for you. I'm embarrassed. I am. That y'all could come and say all these things and say it with the greatest amount of passion, including my good friend from Laborie. The Republic, not the country. This is the same government that when they were in office and redid the East Coast Road, the road stopped at the Canals Bridge and re-begun at Prale. People in the Micoud have not forgotten that. And the fact is how idiotic the policy was. As if only the people from Micoud South and Micoud North use that road. As if only. It's not me inventing that. That's actually what took place and transpired. You want to speak about work that was done not forever, because the work of United Workers' Party in Micoud North needs no explanation. That the father of our nation personally was involved in the development of that constituency. And again, I'm not going to bring back times today, because it's very difficult for even young people today to relate to the extent of lack of infrastructure that we had in those constituencies. But suffice to say, roads, schools, water, telephones, electricity didn't exist. And the transformation that was brought to those constituencies and other constituencies in the South that benefited from this vision of a United Workers' Party. But just in the last 5 years, construction of a new wing at the Monrepo Patience Combined School. Construction of the new football field in Micoud Village. Construction of the new Micoud Health Center in Micoud Village. And I want to say not an ordinary health center. The new wing at the Micoud Secondary School in Micoud Village. Construction of the new Early Childhood Center in Micoud Village. Rehabilitation of the Prale Community Center in Prale. Rehabilitation of the Laundry by the Sea in Micoud Village. Infrastructure renovation rehabilitation works on the two laundries, Mang Laundry and Up the Lime Laundry. New home for fishermen at Prale and the storage facilities. Construction of a new road leading to Prale Community Center and playing field. Rehabilitation of the Micoud Multi-Purpose Center in Micoud Village. Rehabilitation of the Micoud Village Council Office in Micoud Village. The construction of the new road leading from the Monrepo Highway to the newly merged Monrepo Patience Combined School in Patience. Over 500 school bursary scholarships, etc. to students in Micoud North. The construction of a new Patience Early Childhood Preschool. Construction of a new road in Miette Gardens, Micoud. Mayat, my apologies. Construction of the two recreational parks. Teacher Johnny's recreational park in Monrepo and Children's recreational park in Micoud. The new roads in new extension phase 1. The PAC, Anse Captain by the cemetery in Micoud. Rehabilitation of the Patience multi-purpose court. And I can go on. Good. So, you want me to go on? No problem. Career and readiness fair for the school leavers and young unemployed persons. Installation of 2 AC units at the Micoud Police Station. Annual Dr. Gail Rigobert summer camps. Gail Rigobert netball tournaments. Gail Rigobert football tournaments. Auntie Gail TC Rigobert T20 Cricket Cup. Demolition and construction of 2 homes. Reconstruction of 2 homes for persons with disabilities in Micoud Village. Footpath from pedestrian crossing to Monrepo, Credit Union, and Micoud Village. Rehabilitation of Mirage Sachs Preschool in Monrepo. Footpaths in La Pointe. Construction of concrete roads in Lamba and Sainte Marie. road rehabilitation near the Malizaire residence in Monrepo, construction of a box drain up in the line Miku near Galaxy Hardware. And I can go on. I have a list of over 60 other projects. That's just in this, and that's just in the last 5 years term. So to come to this house and to take an incredibly important project like bringing water to a community and to continue with the development and to pretend as if that is the only thing that has taken place in Miku North, and to want to convince maybe yourselves that the reason why people voted for Labour in the last election is because nothing was happening in Miku? Really?
Why they voted Labour?
Really?
Right.
That's for another discussion.
Right.
That's another discussion. But the reality, it was not from a lack of doing work. It was not a lack of taking up our responsibilities. I'm not even going to get into what we have done in Miku South in terms of roads, water projects, school repairs, fixing up playing fields, healthcare centers. But it never stops. I'm not so sure whether the 2-hour speech that the Prime Minister gave at his own conference of delegates, I don't know, 2 hours to convince what? I mean, I was listening to the Prime Minister of Grenada who said, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister spoke for 2 hours, he spoke for 15 minutes, and people seem to remember what he said in the 15 minutes than what the Prime Minister said in the 2 hours. Right? But there was also another contribution at your conference of delegates by the Prime Minister, Ralph Gonzalez. The same reason why you watch our stuff. So, Mr. Speaker, all the time. You come here and quote all our stuff all the time. Your Prime Minister, half his presentation yesterday was about what we're doing. But, Mr. Speaker, Prime Minister Gonzalez said something that's very, very important. I've said it, but I did not ever say it as articulately as he did. Ever. He is very, very good, a genius at that aspect of it. He said, we live in a generation of aspiration. That if you are the poorest of poor, you aspire to be better. If you're middle class, you aspire to be better. And even when you're well off, you aspire to be better. And how I read that, Mr. Speaker, is that politics and economic development is a journey, not a destination. As we build and we fix up things, people now accept that they have the water. Tomorrow, it's going to be something else. And that's the purpose of the democracy that we have, to make sure that nobody ever becomes complacent, and that politicians are responding to the aspirations of our people. That's fundamentally what it is. So it's a continuity. We see at UNESCO the success of continuity. It's about coming to this house and saying that we're building on the successes already there, and we're going to move at a faster pace. And that by the end of your term, sir, that you're going to have over 60 things in which you can come to this house and highlight that you've done for Miku North. But I would say to you, the persons in Miku South, after electing Labour in 1997, have learned their lesson and have no confidence that a Labour Party is going to do anything for them. An example of the difference is that when we came into office, the member from Dennery North and the member from Labrie spoke about the Dennery Water Project. Very important project. Project never stopped. It continued. And it was delivered. And in fact, the member from Dennery was invited. Cut the ribbon. And spoke. And then when we did phase 2, which was not advanced in his administration, we still invited him. And he cut the ribbon again. And we said, it doesn't matter who started the project. If it is a good project. Yeah, I'll get the picture for you. Okay, no problem. And he spoke. And he spoke. And he spoke. And he spoke. Doesn't matter. The same CDB that's funding and the Mexicans, and the same persons that are doing La Guerre today. So, Mr. Speaker, the fact is that he spoke, and we continued the project. Very importantly, because it was water, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from, St. Lucia, and you do not do things to spite an opposition constituency, because you also have supporters in that constituency, but it's the humanitarian thing to do. But Mr. Speaker, the examples are all there for people to see as to who continues the development of St. Lucia and who stops. We don't have far back to go. Rodney Bay Road, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine, Mr. Speaker, the member from Labrie spoke about we need to have a debate. And yes, on the Tuesday session, it spoke about the importance of the difference between government and opposition. And when a government minister, particularly a prime minister, is going to get up to speak, he no longer has the right to speak in vague terms. He must speak with accuracy because he has access to the information. Persons on the opposite side are allowed to speculate until it is clarified. And then, therefore, they should not be able to continue espousing things that have been refuted. Cannot. So, the Rodney Bay Road, allegations of corruption, all kinds of allegations. Most expensive road in St. Lucia, a mile road for $15 million. But when you get down into the debate, Mr. Speaker, and you start unearthing the facts of the thing, it becomes a very different story. I heard the member from Rosalie. 4 lanes, median, 2 roundabouts, and a pedestrian walkway and sidewalks. That's what the $15 million for. And not only that, the contract was a fixed contract for $15 million. So even if there was inflation or anything else, they had to complete it for $15 million. $15 million. Yes. If the Prime Minister has anything differently, he will have his opportunity and he can provide the evidence and show otherwise. But I am saying to you, it was a $15 million fixed contract. And this government came in with their own protect the victory mentality, that they had to stop the project and cast all kinds of aspersions. And at the end of the day, the contractor was allowed to stop the project because it had been stopped for more than 90 days. That means instead of paying the contractor $15 million, they had to assess the works. And the works assessment came higher than the $15 million. So it means that we're going to have to pay the contractor $15 million for a project that he should have completed for $15 million, hasn't, and now you're going to have to find another contractor to finish the works. So at the end of the day, how much is it going to cost? Shock housing, Mr. Speaker, stopped. And after all the bravado that we're going to go and do this and we're going to go and do that, they cannot move until they settle for the payment of works. Tavern. HIA Airport. Project is stopped. You had a project gone through all its phases. Work had already begun. You stop it. Up to today, you can't tell us when you're going to start, what it's going to look like. Come and tell us some story about you've never been to an airport that has 2 stories. Really? Honestly, when the Prime Minister travels, I imagine he's traveling. But he's not going, maybe, I don't know. Miami Airport, pretty much every single airport in the world today has 3 or 4 floors. Who cannot understand the concept of separating departure from arrivals? Who really in today's world cannot understand that concept? St. Jude's has been stopped, Mr. Speaker. Want to have a policy debate? Let's have a policy debate about bananas. How is it that a piece of land can be sold for $2.7 million? when the same minister in a speech in the groundbreaking for a building said that for the breaking down of the CDC buildings, that it was important because the land is valued at $1,000 a square foot. So land at CDC is $1,000 a square foot, but land on the waterfront at Bonanza is only worth $27 a square foot? Really? And there was a valuation that was done in 2013 that showed the land was worth $6.7 million. I have to go there. Because this, if you want to have a debate, I'm prepared to have the debate on policy and issues. But to come to this house and want to try to fool the people? I mean, I was amazed that when the government came in office in 2000 and 2011, the approval for the Japanese to do the Miku North Jetty had already been approved. And what did the government do? They moved it to Savans. And so it's our administration who had to wait until we can get Choiseul resolved and some other issues resolved, and it finally got them to build the new berth, the new dock, fisherman's dock in Miku Village. The design apparently was flawed. But the same way, but you know, Mr. Speaker, I'm not embarrassed to say that. At the end of the day, the entity, you know, the Prime Minister always speaks about, I don't want to get involved, the other people. The Japanese designed it as a floating bridge. But you know what? The same Japanese who built Choiseul, how many years it took us to be able to get them to correct the problem there. It happens. But the reality is that resources had been made available and a priority was given to do the dock. Unlike a Labour Party who today, Mr. Speaker, wants to come in and to suggest that nothing had happened when they're the ones who moved the jetty. You moved it to Savans. The money that was going to go to Miku Village was sent to Savans Bay. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Bhutan. Really? So again, who went and acquired the land to put up the tank? Who put up the tank? Who made all the preparations for the work to be able to bring the water to the people? And you now laid the pipe. I'm proud of that. That's what we talk about, is continuity. But don't come here and tell a half-truth and want to convince people that there is politics involved. Say the truth. Give the people of St. Lucia confidence that the government is functioning. Whatever pecan we want to give each other, that's fine. And as the member from Labrie said, we can have a debate on ideological differences. But do not compromise the confidence that people have in our country and that the system does work. Not all the time, but some of the times. So if we want to get into debate, let's get into debate about the 2.5% levy. As I said, Prime Minister said repeatedly, the levy is not supposed to affect the price of food. He said it. Don't misquote me. I'm saying it correctly. It's not going on the price of food. Everywhere he went, that's what he said. But today, Mr. Speaker, we see that the 2.5% has impacted the price of food. So turn around and relook. But inflation was there before. We told you, you cannot increase taxes at a time of inflationary time. And this idea of this tax you have was not going to work. And the thing is that, you know, the arrogance of the government, that they don't want to listen. And yet they want to turn around, Mr. Speaker, and convince people that somehow they care. Really? You care? You care about the choices that people are having to make every day and have become even harder because of the policies you have? The evidence is there and you still refuse to adjust to it. GPH. I mean, I heard the member again wanting to come back. Really? Honestly, FF&F? It is what you were thinking, it was what is in your heart. The GPH is a classic example of FF&F. Of course, the chairman of Invest is whose good friend? I mean, the member, I hope the Prime Minister really has sat down and analyzed and questioned whether in fact he's really in control of this government. All his friends are in serious positions. All the senior CEOs are friends. His brother now has been made the permanent secretary of economic development. And then you're turning around on a project that makes no financial sense. You're giving up $400 million of revenue. The question to ask is if GPH goes into bankruptcy. And they can. Last year, GPH lost 57 cents per share. After 100 and something % increase in sales, this year, it is 41 cents per share loss. $600 million of debt. If they go bankrupt and a receiver is appointed, how is that receiver going to determine the value of the concession that St. Lucia has given him? And it's simple. The member irresponsible says he doesn't understand the math. The math is simple. 1 million passengers over 40 years. I think it's going to be. We had 1 million passengers in 2019. Cruise ship. Cruise. A million. See, he doesn't even know that. Sure, you can have your own statistics. You can get this. No, I don't have to. I don't have to. Okay? 1 million passengers. It's there.
Okay, 1 million by go do the math. Assume it's 1 million.
Today is 650. What do you think the rate is going to be over a 40-year period? What's the average going to be? If you're going to give the concession for 40 years and it's 650 today, do you really believe that the price of 650 is going to remain for the 40 years? I know that when we were in discussions with the cruise lines, they had already agreed to go to $11. So I know that GPH is going to be increasing the price to at least $11. At least. So let's say 1 million passengers, assuming that we don't grow significantly, and $10, that's $10 million a year. Times 40 years, $400 million US. The Prime Minister yesterday, Mr. Speaker, gave the information that the cruise is only 11%. Sorry? Tuesday. 11% of the revenue, of the port revenue, he was very careful, port revenue of SLASPA. But the idea is what percentage of the profit? Because that cruise business is one of the most profitable arms of SLASPA. So even when you want to take away 11% of the revenue, it is going to have a negative impact on SLASPA. And the sad part is SLASPA has been running and managing that process. They built and did the extension at Point Seraphin. They have developed our cruise ship port. If you go back to 2019 and see the numbers, St. Lucia by far was the #1 cruise destination in the southern part of the Caribbean. #1, by far. In terms of numbers. In terms of numbers. Go and see it for yourself. You're a numbers man. Go and see it. Mr. Speaker. So you're going to now give $400 million of revenue. If it goes into receivership, how is the receiver now going to value that asset? Because it's not land. What it is a revenue stream. Guaranteed, all the revenue from the cruise ship port in St. Lucia is given out in a concession. Take care that St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker, doesn't find itself having to go to buy back its own port. Now, if the members on the opposite side really wanted to appreciate it, work out that number, because that is the number that GPH should sell you. So, Mr. Speaker, they want to come and convince us that the great benefit of this deal is that they're going to spend 30 million US. They say 40, but remember, they're also going to take and absorb the debt of SLASPA. That's included in the 40. And where's the money going? In the port development. Who benefits from the port development? If the person who is earning all the money on the port, that's who's going to benefit. So they're coming, they're going to use your money, our money, to build up an asset to help them earn more money. That makes sense, Mr. Speaker? We're all supposed to sit here and say that, boy, that's great. That's millions of dollars that they should be giving us to buy the concession and let them go. Oh, you see, I love that. And Mr. Speaker, I don't want to take advantage of your generosity. But that will be for another day, and I'm very happy to have that discussion, Mr. Speaker, if we want to do an analysis between GPH and Cabot. Oh, today you want to come and talk about Passion, but everybody spoke about everything else. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad he's not the Speaker. That's what I have to say. So, Mr. Speaker, the administrative building in Viewfort. You know, Mr. Speaker, it's just comical. When we came into office, Mr. Speaker, their good friend, the contractor, and we're not going to mention names, so we know who we're talking about, was working on the administrative building to find out that NIC, the land was never transferred to NIC, and there was no planning approval. None. For the administrative building. Go and show you didn't have it. You're in government. You're in government. You have access to all the information. All of it. But you see, Mr. Speaker, they are scared of bringing out the real information because it would show the amount of lies they told when they were in opposition. But you know what? I forgive oppositions. Okay? Because oppositions can say a lot of things. But the reality is that on many occasions we came here and answered the question, i.e. like CIP. When the member from Castries South it says, oh, the money is not going in. We don't know where the money is. We showed it to him in the budget. He still wanted to deny. We did. And he still wanted to deny, and he still wants to deny. But he has the information today. Go and produce it. How was the money used? So, Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude that sadly, well, let me first of all say, I'm very happy for the people in Mico North to see the continuation of the work that we have done. This is a very important project, but there's so much more to be done in Mico. And a big part of what needs to be done in Mico is to provide jobs for people. So you went and you demonized DSH, you demonized Ojo Labs, you demonized ITEL BPO, you demonized all of those projects, Mr. Speaker. And those are the projects today that are continuing to provide work for the people in the South. And one of the biggest benefits that our government focused on, Mr. Speaker, was the ability that people could not only enjoy water in the South all the time, but they had the opportunity to live in the South and be with their family by providing economic opportunity and prosperity that would not only be as good as the North, but I believe in many ways would have been better. And we already saw the reverse migration taking place, Mr. Speaker. Persons were moving to the South in excitement of what was going to take place. It is only the Labour Party that wants to demonize these things and to destroy progress in this country. And history is replete with examples of that. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm hoping that the Prime Minister will prove us wrong. But the reality is your obsession with protecting the victory is hurting this country. And it seems very clearly by your actions and your words that protecting victory is job 1, job 2, and job 3. Stopping HIA is protecting the victory because you don't want to see it come to fruition. Stopping St. Jude's and wanting to move into an old hospital to deny the people the size of a quality, more modern hospital is protecting the victory. Stopping the housing projects throughout the length and breadth of this country is protecting the victory. Stopping the roads in this country is protecting the victory. Wanting to impose a 2.5% tax and selling the assets of this state to foreigners is protecting the victory. And it's for that reason, Mr. Speaker, that I believe that this government is going to be surprised by the number of persons in this country that share that same sentiment. On November 30th. November 30th is not about overthrowing the government. It's not about a coup. It's not about violence. It's about exercising democracy, practicing democracy, and to hopefully bring the member from Labrie off the rocket he's in and to come back and drive on the roads of St. Lucia, to drive on the roads and feel what the people are feeling, and to take heed and stop thinking that this 15-2 victory, I notice it's 15-2 and it's not 13-2-2. So again, the people of St. Lucia have listened. So all the allegations and the promises that there was no collaboration, it is shown that there was from the beginning. So your government needs to settle down, needs to come back down to some level of reality. And remember, ultimately at the end of the day, we all in this room are answerable to the people of this country. And again, continuing projects, improving the infrastructure of constituencies, working for the people of St. Lucia is what we were asked to do. And therefore, trying to hold yourself on a box as if there's something special that you are doing, you will be sadly disappointed at the results at the next poll. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Whenever the Prime Minister gets his will, his prerogative.
Mr. Speaker, if I were the member for Miku South and I had outlined so many projects and I'd found myself losing that seat and I'd find my majority reduced by more than half, I'd have been ashamed of myself.
As the Prime Minister.
Because if the Prime Minister can come to this honorable house and call and speak about Sir John, and he cannot recall how he treated Sir John's daughter, that reverence he has for the father of the nation, he did not have that reverence for the daughter of the father of the nation. But you know, Mr. Speaker, the member from Miku South is self-righteous. He never stands and says, I made a mistake, I made an error, or I did not speak the truth. The member from Miku South knows very well what happened with the road between Grosile and between Kilago and just before the gas station. He knows very well. That road was built, started to be built without any plan. There was no plan to build that road. That road caused tremendous conflict in the Ministry of Infrastructure between the then Minister of Infrastructure and the project manager, who was actually somebody in charge of seeing about gardens in New York, who he called an engineer. The person who was in charge of that road was a gardener who took care of gardens in New York, and the member from Miku South called him an engineer and put him in charge of that road project. That road project had absolutely no design when it was started. That road project was a direct award given by another minister to a contractor with absolutely no designs or no drawings. These drawings were done on the job. And I do stop here.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order.
Members, let's get this procedure correct. You don't put on your light and stand.
Oh, my apologies.
You put your light, I call upon you, at which point in time the member standing sits. We want to do procedure here, let's do procedure. Member from Miku South, what is the point of order?
Speaking of point of order, the member is misleading the House. My understanding is that the Ministry of Finance is the one who gives the direct orders.
Your point of order is on your understanding.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Okay. And again, Mr. Speaker, I think it's unfair, if I can indulge for a moment, Mr. Speaker, that we continue putting the public through he say, I say. I'm certainly happy to have this discussion in a select committee. I'm certainly happy if we want to have a
Member, if I may guide you, on these points of orders, you may wish to call on the Speaker to request of the maker of the statement the evidence of which he speaks. But to come here and give your opinion, which the member for Casfe's office gave, and you wish for a withdrawal, is not a point of order that can stand. Proceed, member for Miku South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On a point of order, I'd like the member to withdraw the statement that he's made, and certainly if he's going to make that statement, Mr. Speaker, given that he's the Prime Minister, I would like him to bring the evidence of what he is saying. So if he's saying that the direct order was written by another minister, I think it's only fair,
it was written.
given the controversy. That's what you said.
I didn't say written. I can write that order. I said on the advice, you and your friend. You gave it to your, I want to tell you and your friend, you know that.
It was signed by another minister,
I never said
other than the Minister of Infrastructure. So if that is what he said or did not say, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that he provide the evidence as the Prime Minister.
But you are asking to provide evidence on something he did or did not say?
Well, Mr. Speaker, can you advise me on what you heard him say?
Okay, let me say what I said.
Let me hear.
Let me say what I said. I said that there was no plan for the road, and the Ministry of Infrastructure and you had a conflict because the person who was in charge of the road was a man who was in charge of gardens, flower gardens in New York, and you made him chairman of a project management, a PMI, a project management thing, and you and the Ministry of Infrastructure fell out of that, and there was no plan. The chief engineer wiped his hands off that extension you did between the gas station and Kilago. The chief engineer had nothing to do with it. He said that that road, there was absolutely no plan for that road because there existed in the Ministry of Infrastructure a plan for the entire highway. The entire highway. There was a plan for the entire highway which was funded by the QETs, which when you came into power, you cancelled the loan because you wanted to do it by direct award without a tender. And the QETs, yes, you went to the QETs and you told them to change the plan. And they said, no, it must continue. So you and the people of Groseley must blame you for this traffic jam. The people of Groseley must blame you for the confusion on that road because you were the one. You know, you
Prime Minister, could you just hold on a minute? Which part of what the Prime Minister just said there you wish the withdrawal to be?
Mr. Speaker, he had originally said that the...
No, which part? My statement has a great degree of specificity.
Sure. So
which part of what he just said there would you like him to withdraw?
Okay. The fact that he's making presumptions as to the communication between ourselves and the Kuwaitis, if he has evidence to support that, I would be happier with it. But the fact is, as a Prime Minister, he's not speaking as an opposition person. He must provide the facts. Bring the letter where it shows that the government of St. Lucia canceled the contract for the same reasons that he just said.
Please proceed, Prime Minister.
I was speaking as an opposition member to your untruths. That's what I'm speaking as. I'm opposing your untruths. Because you stand here, you said so many things here that are half truths. Anyway, let's get back to the road. So there was a complete design for the Groseley Highway. A complete design. The 4 lanes, which has started, the Bois Bridge, which you criticized because it was a bridge constructed for 1 in 1,000-year hurricane events. That bridge was certified and verified by the Army Corps of Engineers. You speak about continuity. You commissioned a commission of inquiry by the audit department and by some other people that shall remain unnamed. The inquiry said that there were cost savings on that bridge of $300,000. What you did not do, you did not say that the bypass road cost $3 million that you gave full direct award. But that bridge now is ready for 4 lanes to continue the work on the Groseley Highway. There was a plan well drawn out for the Groseley Highway. That plan and these documents are available. But if you want to go back into the past, we can go into the past. But you know, we are concerned. What you want to do, you want to put us off from the progress that the government is making. You want to put us off from the evidence in the Caricus report. You want to put us off from the evidence from the Monetary Council meeting that the minister just attended, the progress of St. Lucia. You want to put us off from the economic progress of this country. So you want to take us in a diversion so we cannot deal with the progress this country is making. In the OECS, we just came from a Monetary Council meeting in the OECS, and that for the OECS, and that meeting will tell you the progress and the economic development in this country over the last year. But you want to go over, you want to go against the facts. You used to come and quote figures. Now you no longer quote figures because the Caricus report tells you different. The unemployment figures tell you different. The unemployment figures tell you different. The Caricus figures tell you different. Right, that's it. The Caricus report on the government of St. Lucia. You refuse to quote it. You are not quoting it. You are quoting from your head, but you're not quoting from the facts. Caricus reports. The Monetary Council report we came from this morning about it. But let's get back to some of the things you said. You spoke about the Miko Health Center. Do you know that Miko Health Center was stopped in the year 2007 because the contractor was not one chosen by the United Workers' Party? Are you aware of that? Troops. You see, you like to insult people. You want to say out things, stand up. And when people leave, that health center was stopped. It started in 2006. The CDB, it was a CDB project. The CDB had chosen the contractor. When you won the elections, you stopped it. Not you, the United Workers' Party. I don't know about the location. I know the CDB had approved it. So you should not come here and mislead the House. Let's go back for the several things that you spoke about. You approved the Belarus doctrine that said if you do not support the United Workers' Party, you're not supposed to get anything. Your own member stood here and said if you just start to cry, if it's for that you cry and you just have to cry, you said nothing. You condoned state-sponsored victimization. You condoned state-sponsored victimization. You condoned it. You were the architect of state-sponsored victimization. You, the member for Miko South. The member for Miko South. You sit in this honorable house and you give the impression that you're such a champion for the needy and a champion for the poor, and our projects are pro this and that. We have a right to protect the victory against you. We have a right to protect the victory against you, because if you are allowed to get back in government in this country, Kwapo spoke the pipe of the people of St. Lucia. So we have no problems in wanting to protect the victory. The victory is to allow you, to prevent you from ever becoming prime minister of this country. That's what the victory is. That's what the victory is. That victory, we must protect it. Yes, I have no say, but the people have a say. The people have a say. And it's because of the people's say you are where you are. The people put a say here. So you must not come to this house and mislead this honorable house. Everything you said there, and I'm happy for you. Everything you said here in this house is a half-truth. Everything you said here is a half-truth. You fail to accept responsibility for your errors. You fail to accept. So what I'm saying to you, member for Miko South, is that this government will remain focused. We're going to remain focused. We're not going to be diverted. Look at the progress. Look at the systematic progress in this country. Look at education. Look at how we started from the basics moving forward. Look at the intervention we've made in small and medium-sized enterprises in this country. Look at how we are developing a new class of entrepreneur. We're not calling people non-entities. We're not saying because you did not have your father did not leave anything for you, your father didn't have a business, that yourself can't have a business. We are developing a new type, and you see the new energy in this country. You see an energy of progress. There's a new energy. There's an energy there's an energy that you can feel it, and people come, and the only person, and you member from Microsoft, you go all over this country saying bad things about the people of St. Lucia. You have gone to
Other countries,
to other representatives, and you say the worst things about St. Lucia, all because the people of St. Lucia rejected you as Prime Minister. You must stop it. You speak about continuity. You told the public that a foreign entity would take the government to court. You talk about continuity. You are the one who go to the airwaves and say the worst things. You calculate murders. Your members say that before the end of the year, over 100 people will die. You condone that. You say to the whole world. You talk about continuity. You talk about continuity when you almost gloat when there is a murder in this country. You gloat about it. You speak about continuity when you wish that the tourism industry will collapse. You speak about figures that don't exist just because you wish the country to collapse, and you speak about continuity.
It's a fraud.
You speak about continuity because of your selfishness, because of your self-righteousness, you do not want to understand that the people of St. Lucia have taken a decision. You speak about continuity, you speak about the airport. We have gone through length to tell you what happened on the airport. We said when we got into government, we formed a committee to look at what's happening at the airport. Everybody, all institutions warn you not to go that way with the airport. You instructed Slasper. The Slasper he's speaking about, you instructed Slasper on the airport. The design for the airport, you changed it. You changed the designs for the airport that were approved. You changed it on your word. You just changed it. You moved it to a location where near a river, where everybody is saying to you, why? You know why? You did it because you wanted to encourage DSH.
Yeah. And you raised it 6 feet. So
you did it. So you can't speak about the airport. You have absolutely no legitimacy.
Member from Eco South.
Again, Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, the member is misleading the House. I'd like him to withdraw this statement that I am the one who caused the design changes to the airport, that I am the one who made all these different things happen.
You took the you to mean you personally and not your administration?
Correct.
Please proceed, my lord.
Mr. Speaker, there is a document that says that he directed Slasper to change the location of the terminal. He did it. Yes. You listen to me. You're not giving me instructions, you know. You want to come and give instructions. Don't give instructions. You have the time to give instructions. Your time to give instructions are past.
I used to give you instructions.
You try.
I tried.
You try. You try to give us instructions here. You come in and you try to lecture us about things that most of the time wrong. You're in a position can do this, do that. Let me ask you something. The terminal building was located in a different location. You instructed Slasper to move it. Now you say it's not you. Unadvisable, say it's not him. He's just saying it's not necessarily advisable. But you just say it's not you.
it wasn't you.
What advised you not to give us CDP? In the same report, what advised you not to give us CDP? What's that? What advised you not to give us CDP? Yourself. That's why you're forgetting.
Blood money? Where you just get anything from? We said it's blood money.
Seriously? That's so we could breathe.
Blood money?
You're so strong.
Mr. Speaker, when I repeat it again, both Hiwanora Airport and St. Jude decisions were not taken by the Cabinet of Ministers.
Mr. Speaker.
Member from Eagle South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, the member is misleading the House. I don't think that there is a cabinet conclusion on both those matters, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the Hiwanora, let me say it again. Hiwanora Airport and St. Jude Hospital. Two committees were formed. Before any decision was taken, two committees were formed that did not include members of the cabinet. These committees made recommendations for both of these entities, and they recommended the steps that we are taking now. Let's go back to Hiwanora. The IFC, the International Finance Corporation, an arm of the World Bank, this Prime Minister went to Washington to have a discussion with the IFC on the Hiwanora International Airport. He was advised that they should continue on the PPP model. He was advised. They told him that that would be the best model based on the country's debt exposure and expertise in airport development. What he doesn't understand is that Hiwanora Airport situation has not ended. So a lot of noise, but that airport situation has not ended. But let's get back to the facts on the ground. Because they moved the terminal building from where it was, it cost the government initially, before the structure could start, because of the piling, the foundation went up. I want to give the exact figures, but I haven't got the document to me. The foundation cost went up about $40 million because they moved the terminal from where it was supposed to be to where they put it, because of the piling that had to take place. So they started the Hiwanora Airport with a massive cost overrun. When the committee looked at the situation, there was a discussion in the cabinet that we should consider that sunk funds. That should be sunk funds, and let us move on the other side. But when the cabinet further deliberated, the cabinet said that you couldn't have $40-something million in the ground and just leave it and go somewhere else. So we decided that we would, on the advice of the committee, we further brought in a consultant recommended by the IFC to look at the Hiwanora Airport. He will make you believe that we just did it like him. It's not like all these phone calls they made for the contractor. And then further, we got a grant from the Canadian government for the IFC. We had to pay back the IFC. And apologize for the behavior. So when he gets up with this self-righteous behavior as if he was the best, he forgets the history. But you know, no matter how they try to spread all kind of lies and calumny, I'm going to defend the victory and defend the interest of the people of St. Lucia. Because we can't allow you to get back in government. So let's get back to the airport. You and your single-mindedness went against the advice of the IFC, the advice of the IMF, the advice of the World Bank, the advice of some members of SLASPA, the advice of the opposition, and you went on the frolic of your own as relates to the airport. If you had continued on the path of the airport, pre-COVID times, the airport would have costed about $1 billion. The airport that you have there would have, if you had continued with you, would have cost us about $1 billion pre-COVID time, much just now. in good conscience, I could not put the people of St. Lucia through that expense. So here's what we did. And you said so before. And the member for Castro South has always asked for debate. The debate will come up. Because of the $46 million you'd spent on the piling that was unnecessary, but made necessary because you had shifted the terminal building to ensure that your horse investment would survive. We said that we would not treat it as sunk costs. So as we speak, we are designing, because you know, that airport, there was no bill of quantities, you know. The largest infrastructure, that is the irresponsibility of the member from Microsoft. The largest infrastructure project in the country, there was no bill of quantities. There was no bill of quantities for the largest infrastructure project in the country. No bill of quantities. It was done on a project called as-bill. As-bill, the largest infrastructure project in the country. So here's what responsible government is. Right now, we are getting a bill of quantities prepared not by friends, but a bill of quantities prepared by independent experts to look at the new terminal building. Which was not done. There was no bill of quantities. You think the public of St. Lucia would ever know that the biggest infrastructure project in the country, after you shifted the terminal building, you instructed SLASPA to shift it, caused us to have tied-in costs for overruns of millions of dollars. You had no bill of quantities? For the entire project. For the entire project, you have no bill of quantities, and that's your responsibility as Minister of Finance, and you come with self-righteous. Let's get to St. Jude. Let's get to St. Jude. Because you know, you believe that because you can stand up and say your things with your accent, that you, people of this country, will listen to you. They've proven to you they're not listening to you, and they still continue not to listen to you. Because you are a stranger to many things, some of them the truth. St. Jude Hospital. When you got into government in 2016, there was a handover report that you had from the engineers of St. Jude. I was the one who sat there and said there was a handover report. You hid it. You hid it. You refused to make that handover report available to the public of St. Lucia. You hid it. When I sat there and I said there's a handover report, which you denied, you and your friend, the one who lost also, the one who said I can never lose election, he lost. When I made that point, and that's why you all on my case, so you know. You're on my case. I can take it. The people with me and God with me. When you and your friend here, when that handover report, you all said you all never had it. The handover report disclosed that the hospital only needed, and you tried to malign them in the member for Labine. He said so. The hospital had its issues, but the hospital could have been completed. It outlined the handover report. It outlined what had to be done. You used taxpayers' money and you paid suppliers for hospital equipment that up to now the people of St. Lucia have not got that equipment. And I met a supplier who said to me, what kind of government you all running? You all have paid me for equipment, and why haven't you all brought the equipment to be used in the hospital? There is no reason. You cannot give me any scientific reason why you did not continue work on the St. Jude Hospital. Further.
A member from Eco South.
Speaker, on the point of order, the member is misleading the House, and I'd like him to withdraw the statement that he made about the contents of the report, in suggesting that the report outlined a process to proceed. The report I read made no such
You said it didn't exist.
made no such and that has been made a document of the House. And if we want to get into the veracity as to what he's speaking about, which I don't think I can do on a standing order, I will not. All I'm asking to do is to withdraw the statement, because the report that he's speaking of has been made a document in his House, and there's nowhere in the document in the House it says the things that he just said.
Noted.
The document outlined the handover report. Doesn't talk about handover report. The handover report out this mine?
Yeah, so you finish.
The handover, it's where does the report again? The handover report outlined where the hospital was and what was needed to complete it. Then you commissioned the report. And that report that you commissioned also said that the report noted that the hospital was on a stop and go basis because there were no designated funds for the construction of the hospital. The report said so. The report that you commissioned. But the hospital could be used for the purpose for which it was built. It could be done. You understand? Your own report said so. You refused. You left the buildings. You talk about responsibility. You left millions of dollars for rats and further for rats, for bats, for grass. You left these buildings to literally rot. You talk about responsibility. 3 years you left them. 3 years you left this. You left between $90 and $100 million to rot. Plus the fact, in your box, with your box, you had to use these same buildings to make your box functional. Now that's what the public must understand. The box that you're building, the buildings, the original buildings, had to be used with the box for the hospital to be functional. And you must say that's not true. Rise on the point of order. The box could not stand alone. The box was never intended to stand alone. The box was to be used with the original buildings that you call old. So when you come and you make these examples, you come and you make. When you come and you make these statements, these self-righteous statements about you perfect, and you have the answers to all solutions problems. You understand? You have the answers to all solutions problems. You refuse.
Member from Microsoft.
On the point of hallucination, Mr. Speaker.
Are you yielding?
What?
Are you yielding? Yes, he is yielding.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The member is absolutely correct, Mr. Speaker. The part of the old building that was used was to house the laundry building, the administrative block, and the cafeteria, because the remaining amount of building could not function with the core services of a hospital.
But that's what he said, that it was not a standalone. Please proceed, Prime Minister.
No, Mr. Speaker. So with all his fiscal responsibility, he left about $90 million worth of work to be taken over by rats and bats and things. And we came and we cleaned it up. We restored it, you understand? And now, it's as we speak, these buildings have been restored. There are people who came from abroad, medical people, hospital people, and said, why did your government stop the work on that hospital? There is no reason, absolutely no reason, no scientific reason why the work was stopped. And I'll tell you, I can assure you, and this is why that is the problem. I can assure you, because of the planning and because of the motives of our government, which basically is only to provide proper health care for the people of St. Lucia. That's our motive. We are going to finish the construction of St. Jude Hospital for the people of St. Lucia. And you refuse to believe that. You refuse to understand that because you had the opportunity. You had all the opportunity because we supported you. We told you to continue building the original buildings. We supported you. We're not like you, that you oppose everything we do. We supported you and refused. Now, let's get back to the health and security level that you're speaking about. You pretending that you know that it's such a bad thing, etc. You came here and you spoke about we don't have enough money for health care and enough money for health care and for education. You said that you never spoke about the health and security levy. Now I gave one quote. You want me to give the other one? I gave one quote. If you don't tackle me, tackle me. Because you see, when I leave here, you're going to go and deny it. Because you're such a convincing fella at saying what you think the truth is. The truth is what you believe. You're so convinced. In fact, you've convinced some people on that they may even believe you. They may even believe you, or some of them believe you. You reduce VAT by 2.5%. I want to ask the public of St. Lucia, what prices went down when you reduced VAT? Yeah. What grocery prices went down when VAT was reduced? Let's go along memory lane. You and your circles that go along memory lane. What grocery prices went down when you reduced VAT? What grocery prices went down? Did the prices in the supermarket go down when VAT was reduced? Did any of the food that we use, that the people of St. Lucia use, did these prices go down when you reduced VAT? They did not. And it's proven. When you reduce VAT, inflation was between 1 and 3% at its highest. Inflation has reached the highest level from probably 2008 or 2000 and that nature. 6% global inflation. 6%. All the supply chain issues. When pre-COVID there was deflation. There was deflation when you run the government. And you on record are saying that you should not, this guy. You're talking about 2.5% levy. When you were Minister of Finance, the price of fuel was low because of supply chain issues, but you said in the public that you are not going to reduce the price of fuel in the pump. You said so. You said that you talk about health and security levy when you had the best times. You had deflation, you had a low price of fuel, and you had the time when you could have brought down the price of fuel. You did not, and you're on record as saying why you did not. Now we're living in times, global times, and anybody can tell you, if they speak to their relatives anywhere in the world, they will tell you how the price of food is increasing. We are concerned about the increase in the price of food. We are not deaf or blind. We understand that the price of food is going up. We have taken measures. To reduce the price of food, at least to keep it stable. You on record are saying that our idea of helping the poor is to subsidize flour, sugar, and rice. You on record are saying, I can play all these tips for you. You on the record are saying that our idea of subsidizing for poor people is to subsidize rice, flour, and sugar. You on the record are saying that. You understand? But now you come here and you, without any shame, talk about the health and security levy. There was no evidence in your government that you did anything to reduce the price of food when circumstances warranted that you could reduce it. There's no evidence. You could have reduced the price of food. You could have done it, and you want to blame me for that? You could have done it. But you did nothing. You pretend as if you were never in government. You pretend as if you never run this country. You pretend as if you did not get a country when the economy was on the rise, and when the country had both primary and current surpluses. You pretend as if that country never existed for you, with your self-righteous pleas. So the health and security level, as we said, is not like what you said is in a block box to be used for road construction. You've never disclosed how much money is in that lockbox. Oh well, you've never disclosed it. But you know, you're self-righteous. Where is the lockbox and how much money is in that lockbox? We say that the health and security levy is to improve healthcare and to improve the security apparatus of this country, and there is evidence where we have done that. We said, if there is need for any changes, we're not like you. We're not saying I'm not doing the stress fund and I'm not doing that and I fire because I can. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that if there is anybody who can give us ideas as to how we can collectively reduce the cost of living, we'll join them and talk to them. We've invited the Chamber of Commerce. They've given us some ideas. We are looking at it because we understand the price of food has gone up, even though we never owned any supermarket. We understand that. So we're not saying that there ought not to be concern, but to come here and to blame the government, to use cheap political tactics and cheap political propaganda when you had the opportunity, when you're Minister of Finance, when conditions were much better to reduce the price of food, and you never did it. You reduced VAT. For who? Who benefited from your reduction of VAT? And you put a 150 tax that everybody suffered from. And you're talking about reducing the price of bus fares. Why this guy? You see, Mr. Speaker, you had legislation that to tax charcoal, black pudding, sauce making, black pudding making. That's under your government. And you're speaking about the health and security levy that is only on imported goods that do not have, that are not VAT exempt or are not zero VAT. And we are in the process of revising it all the time. But you refuse to say that when we have done that, we have removed VAT on building materials that people use for the houses. You're not saying that at all. And look, go ask the hardware manufacturers, the hardware distributors, what is the effect of that removal of VAT? Go and ask them. But you stand here and you profess as if you are a master in running the economy, and Tunisia did so well on the reign. You must say your first 2 years before COVID, what you did, and let's compare the first 2 years under us. You want debate? Let's debate that. Let's debate it. Let's debate the first 2 years. Finally, you on and on about land in Banan. I have told you several times before that these discussions on land sales and land leases are something that the country has to look at. You leased out in Viewfort between 500 and 1,000 acres of land, for part of it for less than 99 cents a square foot. So let's talk about comparison. You did that. No, we can discuss it. 99 square feet, 99 cents per square foot. You know? Also, but you've come here and you promised you were in negotiations with GPH. Why they fell, I know, but I go say. I'm not going to say, because, I tell you something, Mr. Member from Microsoft. Through Mr. Speaker. You come here and you speak about your self-righteousness and corruption. And, if I was a fellow like that, like involved in TMT, but that's not how I was brought up. I know TMT fella. So I allow you to say your things. But people tell you not things, People talking, People, especially as the other government now, people talking. Don't think they're talking, Not because we are saying what they're saying. Don't believe they're saying. They're saying things. They're saying. I remember you said your class let you down. You said so. You said that was the reason why you lost election, because your class let you down. But I want to inform you that people are talking. And when people hear you and your surrogates, making these statements of self-righteousness and making these accusations, they just shake their head and say, Father, forgive them, for the people don't know what they've done. So, Mr. Speaker, that's from Jews. I want to go to the road. To the road? Yeah, the road. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to come back and say that this water treatment in Patience is part of the government's purpose of giving water to the people of St. Lucia. We were the ones who negotiated for the water supply to give Labrie and these areas water. That's our being. And you spoke about the Rosa Dam. We don't want to go into the Rosa Dam yet. Huh? Yes. Don't be talking about water supplies as if you are the king of water supplies. And you pretend as if you all were never in government. You were in government. You were in government for more times than the Social Labour Party. Up to 2021, the United West Party was in power more often than the Social Labour Party. Check it out. So don't pretend as if you were never in power. You had all the opportunity to do what you said, all the things you say you did. Why did the people reject you? You said the people rejected you because the Labour Party lied for 5 years, so you're going to lie for 5 years too. That's the reason you give, That's the reason you give. That we lie for 5 years, so and some people are saying, don't believe that he'll come as he came the last time. But we come in differently too. It's not only you that come differently. We can come differently too. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank the members. And anytime the member from Microsoft gets up in this house, because we had ignored him for quite a while. Anytime he or his surrogates get in this honorable house and misguide the public, as he continues to do, we are going to challenge every word of his assertion. Mr. Speaker, I thank members for supporting this bill. Thank you very much.
Member for Castries South.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that this House is suspended until...
But don't you just want to take the vote on this motion before
I thought you... Sorry.
Honourable members, the question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow an amount of US $1,203,224, the loan from the CARICOM Development Fund, the fund, to finance the Patience Community Water Supply Project, and be it further resolved that A, the loan is repayable in 10 years, commencing from the first due date after a grace period of 2 years following the date of the first disbursement. B, the loan is repayable in 40 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments. C, the loan payments commence on the 30th day of March, the 30th day of June, the 30th day of September, and the 30th day of December of each year. D, the interest payable is at a rate of 3% per annum on the amount of the loan disbursed and outstanding. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Member for Castries South.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I beg that the House is suspended until 2:45.
Honorable members, the question is that this House do stand suspended until 2:45 in the PM. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting suspended.
All right.
Welcome viewers, welcome back to the proceedings here at the Parliament of St. Lucia. The House has just been adjourned from the morning session where a motion authorizing the Minister of Finance to borrow the amount of US $1,203,224 for a loan from the CARICOM Development Fund, and that is to finance the Pastures Community Water Supply Project. We heard some debate on the motion by the member representing the community, Meacood North, Jeremiah Norbert, and the member from Choiseul and some members from the governing side. All in all, the member from Meacood North had thanked the government for this project, noting the water woes that the Pastures community had undergone for a period of time. The minister, the member from Choiseul, Honorable Bradley Felix, he also rose in agreement and was also speaking on work that his administration had done under the previous representative, Rigobert, to alleviate some of the problems, the water problems in that community. There was a lot of debate on some political matters, but I wanted to draw our attention at the beginning of the session this morning where the Speaker of the House had read a statement. When the House had adjourned on Tuesday, he had said that he would make a statement concerning live proceedings of the House. And this was because there was a lot of contention, if you like, concerning the debate that was going on, where we saw the member for Meacood South defy the Speaker, if you will, on a number of occasions. And I just wanted to draw the attention of our viewers to some of the rules of order in the standing order of the House of Parliament, and specifically what the Speaker was referencing concerning the defiance and or compliance concerning his jurisdiction in the House. I just want to draw attention to the rules of order, point 41, paragraph 41. The Speaker in the House and the Chairman shall be responsible for the observance of the rules of order in the House. So the Speaker is responsible for the observance of the rules. It continues that whenever the Speaker rises during a debate, any member speaking shall sit down, and he shall be silent so that the Speaker may be heard without interruption. It continues that a member who persists in tedious repetition, either of his own arguments, the Speaker may direct that member to discontinue his speech and to resume his seat. And the Speaker was making reference on Tuesday that he had certain orders given him through the standing orders to discipline any member who would not comply. So when the Speaker resumed this morning, he made reference to the Leader of Government Business, whom he had, perhaps erroneously told to take his seat, and however he complied. And then he juxtaposed this against the defiance, if you will, of the leader of the position, or the leader of the opposition, member for Meacood South, who had refused to take his seat on 3 occasions after being ordered to do so by the Speaker of the House. And so the Speaker made it clear that although he wasn't perfect, but that once he had made a ruling, it is incumbent on members to comply with the ruling, because he sets the rules of order in the House of Parliament. So the Parliament stands adjourned until 2:45, and as we just heard, the motion centered on authorizing the Minister of Finance to borrow just about $1.2 million from the CARICOM Development Fund to finance the Passias community and areas like Mopo, Passias, Lapwet, Magnitude, Grass Street, Vietnam, areas Micoud North would get supply of water on a more regular basis. So until 2:45, when we resume in here, on behalf of my co-host, Mr. Michael Gasper, the rest of the technical team, please join us again at 2:45 when we resume with the parliamentary proceedings. Thank you so much for viewing.